Chapter 1451. There's no need to trouble all of you. Chu Fengmian smiled and pointed his palm. Suddenly, a surge of sword intent soared into the sky. Under this surge of sword intent, a group of dragons roared. The entire Five Spirits Hall was filled with dragon roars. In the deepest part of the Five Spirits Hall, a lady was sitting cross-legged. Behind her, a void appeared. It was gray and blurry. It was as if she had arrived at the most ancient chaotic era. The power of the heavens and earth shrouded the lady and was being devoured bit by bit. With every bit of power of the heavens and earth she devoured, the aura of the lady grew stronger. Although this lady was only a 7 tribulation ancient emperor, the power that she exuded gave off an unfathomable feeling. It was extremely unique. It was as if it was completely different from any other power in the world. The profoundness of it was unfathomable. In her embrace, there was a round demonic beast with snow-white fur. It was taking a nap in the lady's embrace. However, the round demonic beast was even more frightening than the lady. Every time it breathed, it was taking in the surrounding chaotic aura. This was the most ancient and uncontrollable power. However, the round demonic beast was taking in the chaotic aura while it was taking a nap. The lady and the demonic beast were cultivating. Suddenly, the lady opened her eyes. What's going on? The lady felt the vibration of the Five Spirits Hall and was immediately awakened. The chaotic aura behind her began to dissipate. Sword intent, dragon roar? This is... Suddenly, the lady opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with joy. In a flash, she left the Five Spirits Hall. In the Five Spirits Hall, the group of Five Spirits sect saints were puzzled by Chu Fengmian's actions. Brother Chu, what are you doing? Before Mu Lin could finish his words, a beam of light rushed over. It was a lady. The lady's smile was extremely charming. Anyone who saw it would be completely captivated and lost in it. Why have you come to the sacred ground? The moment the lady saw Chu Fengmian, her body flashed and she appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. She threw herself into Chu Fengmian's embrace. Luo, she sounded very surprised. Ever since she had come to the sacred land, she had been looking for news about Chu Fengmian. However, he had been empty-handed all this while. Who would have thought that he would see it in the Holy Land today? It's true. This person really is junior sister Luo Shi's Dao companion. The group of Five Spirit sect Shengzis finally believed Chu Fengmian's words when they saw Luo Shi throw herself into Chu Fengmian's arms. Although Luo Shi had many suitors since coming to the Holy Dragon Mystic Realm, she had never done such a thing to that man. Of course I'm here to look for you. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi and smiled. Luo Shi's current strength was completely different from when she was in the 9 domains. She had already stepped into the realm of the 7 calamities Emperor Gu. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could tell that Luo Shi had stepped from the quasi-emperor realm to the 7 tribulations Emperor Gu, becoming the peerless Emperor Gu. Once he became the peerless Emperor Gu, there was a great chance that he could step into the half-step celestial realm, or even break through to the true celestial realm. Puff! On Luo Shi's shoulder, Little Nine suddenly ran out and glanced at Chu Fengmian. He jumped onto Chu Fengmian's head and sized up Chu Fengmian with his small eyes as if he was observing Chu Fengmian. Little guy, long time no see. Chu Fengmian looked at Little Nine and smiled as he stroked Little Nine's fur. During this period, Little Nine's appearance did not change at all. However, Chu Fengmian could clearly feel that the power in Little Nine's body was bottomless. Little Nine was still a little immature before, like a child. Now, Little Nine could be considered a young man. Especially the power in his body, Chu Fengmian could not see through it immediately. This speed of growth indeed made Chu Fengmian sigh at the power of the bloodline. Senior brothers, this is my Dao companion, Chu Fengmian. Luo Shi came back to her senses after a long time. She blushed and said to the group of 5 spirit sect Shengzis. These senior brothers have been very good to me in the 5 spirit sect. They have always protected me. We're all from the same sect. It's nothing. Mu Lin chuckled and said. We won't disturb the reunion of the two of you. Everyone, please leave. Swoosh. The 5 spirit sect Shengzis in the main hall left one after another, leaving only Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Let's go. This is not the place to talk. Let's go to my palace. Luo Shi said to Chu Fengmian after everyone left. The two of them had great secrets on them. Naturally, they had to be careful. 2 streaks of light came to a palace in the 5 spirit hall. This was Luo Shi's own palace. The restrictions inside were set by Luo Shi herself. Other people, including the 5 spirit sect Shengzis, were not qualified to enter without permission. Chu Fengmian, where did you go previously? Why couldn't we find you? Luo Shi asked hurriedly as soon as she stepped into the palace. She and Han Yueli had been looking for Chu Fengmian ever since they arrived at the Sacred Dragon Mystery Land and settled down. However, they did not find anything. After all, the Sacred Dragon Mystery Land controlled hundreds of continents. Among the hundreds of continents, there were billions or even tens of billions of martial artists on each continent. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find a person based on his name. I landed on the ancient monster continent. Chu Fengmian recounted his journey and the various things that had happened. The ancient monster continent is a grade 7 continent. I didn't expect you to land there. After listening carefully, Luo Shi sighed. It seems that the two of us were lucky to land in the Sacred Dragon Mystery Land. Later, the 5 spirit sect master thought highly of us and made an exception to accept us as disciples of the 5 spirit sect. Then, we were promoted to Shengzis. Compared to Chu Fengmian, who had to come to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Land slowly from the ancient monster continent to the sacred ground, Luo Shi and Han Yueli were much simpler. Is there any danger in the sacred ground? I see that many people are plotting something against you. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi with killing intent in his eyes. What's going on? Chu Fengmian bumped into Lin Lai as soon as he arrived. Clearly, Lin Lai was not the only person plotting against Luo Shi. It's all right. Although it's a little troublesome, it's not too dangerous. Luo Shi sighed after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. Chapter 1452. Little Nine? Chu Fengmian looked at the little guy lying in Luo Shi's arms and his eyes flashed with surprise. Take a look at my bloodline. Luo Shi looked at Chu Fengmian and said slowly. Bloodline? Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed as he carefully checked Luo Shi's bloodline. He realized that Luo Shi's strength was completely different from before. Luo Shi used to cultivate the charm demon sect of the 6 demon sects. It was a pure demonic technique. But now, Luo Shi's strength was incomparably ancient. It was the most ancient type of energy that existed before the creation of heaven and earth. This energy made Chu Fengmian's bloodline power boil. Innate divine beast bloodline? Chu Fengmian carefully observed Luo Shi's bloodline. After confirming it, he was shocked. This is Little Nine's bloodline power? This bloodline power came from the same source as Little Nine's strength. You little guy. Chu Fengmian looked at Little Nine with anger in his eyes. He had looked for Little Nine before to ask for a drop of essence blood to transform his bloodline into an innate divine beast bloodline. But Little Nine refused to give it to him. Now, he gave it to Luo Shi. And this wasn't an ordinary innate divine beast bloodline. At the very least, it took a lot of essence blood to shape it. Although Chu Fengmian's bloodline power was condensed from the essence blood of an innate divine beast, it wasn't much stronger than Luo Shi's. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Little Nine turned his head away with a look of disdain and pride. Forget it. Chu Fengmian smiled. After all, Luo Shi was the one who got the bloodline power. There wasn't much difference between her and Chu Fengmian. Those who proposed marriage to me are mostly here for the bloodline power. Luo Shi said. For a genius expert like Emperor Gu, he could have as many women as he wanted. With his strength, he could become the ruler of a continent. Naturally, he didn't lack women. Luo Shi's appearance was one thing, but what really attracted the geniuses of the 4 great powers to propose marriage to Luo Shi was Little Nine's bloodline power. In the various major powers, there were also unique dual cultivation techniques that could allow the female to become the furnace top, depriving the other of all their fortuitous encounters, bloodline power, and strength. It wasn't too late for Chu Fengmian to use such methods, but those people might not. Luckily, I have little Jio's help. He has helped me resolve many problems. Also, the seniors of the Five Spirits sect have protected me and helped me a lot. Luo Shi's eyes flashed with worry. However, there are a few troublesome characters among them. The reason why I've been in seclusion in the Holy Land and haven't left is to avoid them. Troublesome character? Who is it? Chu Fengmian's gaze was incomparably cold. His current strength was enough to kill the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. He might even be able to hold his own against the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. With such strength, there was no need for him to endure any longer. Chu Fengmian would kill anyone who dared to have designs on Luo Shi. One of them is the Prince of Luo River from the Shanghai capital. His strength has reached the peak of the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. He's very difficult to deal with and his background is extremely high. His father is the Luo River Emperor Gu, a true 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu of the Shanghai capital. This person has come to propose marriage to me countless times, but I've rejected him every time. Last time, he even asked several elders of the Shanghai capital to accompany him. After that, I've been in the Five Spirits Hall of the Holy Land, refusing to see anyone. Prince of Luo River? Chu Fengmian had never heard of this name. However, Chu Fengmian roughly understood that there were hidden strengths among the 4 great powers, just like the Holy Land and the Sacred Dragon's secret domain. There were similar places among the other 3 great powers. The outside world didn't know much about the geniuses there, so they weren't counted on the All-Heaven Genius ranking. However, these people were the true geniuses and the pillars of the 4 great powers. It doesn't matter if he's the Prince of Luo River or not. When I meet him, I'll definitely kill him. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. From the impatience in Luo Shi's words, Chu Fengmian knew that the Prince of Luo River had pestered Luo Shi more than once. Such a person couldn't be left alive. Chu Fengmian had already memorized this person's name in his heart and was thinking about how to kill him. Not to mention that the Prince of Luo River's father was a 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Even if his father was a half-step celestial being, Chu Fengmian would have no qualms about killing him. Who else? Chu Fengmian asked. There's also the Zhong Emperor of the Avalon of 5 Elements. He's a quasi-emperor, but his strength isn't below that of the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. It's said that he once obtained an incomparably ancient bronze bell and obtained great fortune from it. Zhong Emperor? It was another unfamiliar name, but this person was also on Chu Fengmian's must-kill list. Once he encountered him, Chu Fengmian wouldn't show any mercy. Apart from these 2 people, the others are just some small fries. Luo Shi said. However, the young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect and the Sacred Dragon secret domain, Wu Dao, has been targeting me and Yueli. It's said that he's targeting Little 9. Wu Dao. The second on the Great Luo Genius list, Wu Dao. Chu Fengmian had suddenly heard of this name. The second on the Great Luo Genius list was the young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect, Wu Dao. However, because Chu Fengmian already knew about the relationship between the sacred grounds, he didn't put the people on the Great Luo Genius list in his eyes. But now that he heard Luo Shi's words, since even she found it troublesome, Wu Dao was definitely an incomparably difficult person to deal with. After all, although Luo Shi's current realm was at the level of the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu, her true strength had probably reached the level of the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Ordinary Emperor Gu wasn't much trouble for Luo Shi. However, it's him. However, Wu Dao's strength has always been hidden deeply. Outsiders only think that his realm is around the level of the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu, but I've fought with him before. His strength is above mine. As Luo Shi spoke, there was a solemn expression in her eyes. Compared to the other 2, Wu Dao is more dangerous because he's the young sect master of the Sacred Academy sect. In the Sacred Dragon secret domain, the Sacred Academy sect's status is higher than our 5 Spirits sect. they also have more experts, so it's extremely troublesome to make an enemy out of him. No choice. What Sacred Academy sect? What young sect master? I'll kill him sooner or later. Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Suddenly, a jade bottle flew out from Chu Fengmian's palm and flew towards Luo Shi. Chapter 1453. This is? Luo Shi opened the jade bottle and immediately felt a pure medicinal essence. This medicinal essence alone was enough to prove that the elixir in the jade bottle was definitely a high-grade sage elixir. This is a primitive emperor elixir. If you swallow it now, you have an 80% chance of stepping into the realm of 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian said. Luo Shi's current strength had already reached the level of 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. If she refined this primitive emperor elixir, her strength would improve further. Even if she couldn't reach the level of 9th Tribulation Emperor Gu, she would be able to reach the peak of 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. Han Yueli's strength wasn't much weaker than Luo Shi's. By then, the people around Chu Fengmian would be a force to be reckoned with in the Sacred Dragon secret realm. By then, whether it was 6 Ultimates sect or Sacred Academy sect, they would have to think twice before dealing with him. Primitive Emperor Elixir. Luo Shi looked at the elixir in her hand and was shocked. Although she hadn't seen this primitive Emperor Elixir before, its name was like thunder to her ears. Basically, for 7th Tribulation Emperor Gu and 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu, the primitive Emperor Elixir was something they wanted the most. It was enough to raise Emperor Gu's cultivation level. Even though Luo Shi had the innate divine beast bloodline, it was several times more difficult for her to break through compared to ordinary cultivators. However, if Luo Shi refined this primitive Emperor Elixir, she would be 80% prepared to break through. Take the elixir and I will help you break through to 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and set up countless formations and restrictions above the palace. The tribulation lightning caused by Emperor Gu's breakthrough was far from the true Emperor realm. Even Chu Fengmian didn't dare to underestimate it. All right. Luo Shi waved her hand and suddenly grabbed the elixir and swallowed it. She immediately activated her cultivation technique to refine the power of the primitive Emperor Elixir. There was a loud boom. An incomparably large amount of spiritual energy was emitted from Luo Shi's body. Behind her, the spiritual energy suddenly turned into nothingness and turned into chaos. Chaos Gate. Open! As Luo Shi shouted, an ancient door appeared in the void. This was an extremely ancient door that contained the most ancient power in the world. Endless chaotic aura gushed out of the ancient door and began to merge with Luo Shi's body. Luo Shi's strength increased by a few notches with every wave of primal chaos aura she absorbed. Within Luo Shi's body, the medicinal power of the primitive Emperor Pill was enough to support Luo Shi to summon the primal chaos aura endlessly from the ancient door. All of a sudden, Luo Shi's power seemed to reach a critical point. She leapt into the peak realm of the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu. A total of 2,000 sky and earth nomological laws flew out of Luo Shi's body. These sky and earth nomological laws were also stained with a chaotic aura and were completely different from the sky and earth nomological laws of other people. I'm going to start leveling up. Chu Fengmian could sense that less than 30% of the original Emperor Pill's medicinal effects had been used to raise Luo Shi's cultivation level to the peak of the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu. It was indeed worthy of being called the most perfect breakthrough pill for Emperor Gu. The medicinal effects were so strong that it exceeded Chu Fengmian's expectations. Wang! Endless chaotic aura surrounded Luo Shi's body. Her strength had already reached its limit and the chaotic aura could no longer be contained within her body. However, the primal chaos door behind Luo Shi did not stop. Instead, it pulled out even more chaotic aura at an even faster pace. Thousands of Dao, tens of thousands of Dao. The entire palace turned into chaos. As the chaotic aura increased, a bolt of tribulation lightning suddenly condensed above Luo Shi's head. The tribulation lightning had arrived. The power within Luo Shi's body was also starting to break through to the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu's realm. A massive tribulation lightning descended from the sky above the 5 Spirits Hall. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, attracting the attention of countless saints. Someone broke through? The power of this tribulation lightning is at least at the level of Emperor Gu. That's in the direction of the Five Spirits Hall. Who's there? The entire sacred ground was alarmed by this tribulation lightning. Countless saints were talking among themselves, discussing who it was that had drawn out the tribulation lightning. The Five Spirits Hall was in a state of chaos. This tribulation lightning is coming from junior sister Luoxi's direction. Junior sister Luoxi is undergoing tribulation. The group of Five Spirits sect saints were shocked. Others might not know, but they knew that Luoxi had not even been a month or two away from becoming a Seven Tribulations Emperor Gu. It was already difficult for her to stabilize her realm within this short period of time, let alone to advance further. Let's leave the Five Spirits Hall first. Otherwise, we will be in trouble if we are affected by the tribulation lightning. Mu Lin looked in the direction of the palace and said. Then, a ray of light flew out of the Five Spirits Hall, not daring to go near it. The remaining saints of the Five Spirits sect also flew away. Once they were affected by the tribulation lightning, they would be doomed eternally. No one dared to go near it. The tribulation lightning is about to be completed. Chu Fengmian looked at the sky and said slowly. Boom! Just as Chu Fengmian spoke, a pitch-black tribulation lightning struck down from the thunderclouds. The entire Five Spirits Hall shook violently. Countless seals were smashed into smithereens at this moment. This lightning tribulation was directed towards Luoxi. Chaotic Five Elements. Five Elements Divine Light. Boom! Luoxi suddenly opened her eyes. Balls of chaotic aura started to gather in her palms. Within the chaotic aura, there was a five-colored radiance. It was the power of the Five Elements. The Five Elements Divine Light collided with the tribulation lightning in the sky. Crack! The pitch-black tribulation lightning was shattered. However, even more tribulation lightning bolts came one after another, bombarding Luoxi's body without any signs of stopping. The primal chaos gate behind Luoxi immediately flew out and absorbed all the tribulation lightning that struck her body. In half an hour's time, the 81 tribulation lightning had been neutralized. When all 81 tribulation lightning were blocked, dazzling golden radiance flew out from Luoxi's body from the surrounding chaotic aura. Every dazzling golden radiance was the law of heaven and earth. The law of heaven and earth condensed from the chaotic aura and integrated into Luoxi's body. There were more than 500 of these law of heaven and earth that integrated into Luoxi's body. Suddenly, Luoxi's power was 10 times stronger than before. Chapter 1454. Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu. Luoxi had officially stepped into the realm of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu with the condensation of these 500 laws of heaven and earth. Although she had just stepped into the realm of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu, Luoxi's current strength was not inferior to any of the veteran Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu. His aura was even stronger than the Blood God Ancient Emperor, Great Elder Heichen, and the others. He had already reached the peak of the Eight Tribulation Ancient Emperor realm. Chu Fengmian knew that it would not be easy to take Luoxi down with his current strength. Of course, Luoxi was still inferior to the real Ninth Tribulation Emperor Gu, which made Chu Fengmian feel a little regretful. Ninth Tribulation Emperor Gu was indeed an insurmountable mountain. For example, Luoxi had the strength of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu when she was still a Seventh Tribulation Emperor Gu. However, she had now stepped into the realm of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu. Her true strength was still at the peak of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu. Compared to the real Ninth Tribulation Emperor Gu, there was still a big gap. However, with Luoxi's current strength, she might be able to withstand a few blows from Ninth Tribulation Emperor Gu. It was impossible for her to defeat him, but with Chu Fengmian, it would not be difficult for her to escape unscathed. I have finally stepped into the realm of Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu. Luoxi slowly opened her eyes and her expression was one of incomparable joy. We can go look for Yueli now. Where did Yueli go? Chu Fengmian was stunned when he heard this. From what he knew, Luoxi and Han Yueli should be in the Holy Land.
However, Chu Fengmian had only seen Luo Shi on this trip. Yueli has already gone to the 9 regions. Luo Shi's face suddenly turned serious. The Daluo star field has already known about the 9 regions. Many forces are already preparing to head to the 9 regions to search for treasures. Luo Shi rushed to the 9 regions a week ago. As for me, I originally wanted to go after her, but I did not expect to be targeted by the Sane Academy sect. I can't get away. Now that you and I have joined forces, we can rush out directly. The Sane Academy sect cannot stop us. Hearing all this, Chu Fengmian's expression became incomparably solemn. 9 regions? Discovered? Chu Fengmian now knew that the 9 domains, which used to be one of the 4 saint domains, would be enough to make the entire Daluotian star domain go crazy if they were discovered. It was just like the treasures in the 9 domains. Regardless of whether it was the House of Storms or the Sinkhole Realm, Chu Fengmian's current experience was enough to tell that they were all priceless treasures. Even the famous treasures in the entire Daluo star field weren't inferior to it. Moreover, there were a lot of treasures. The treasures of the 9 regions were even more numerous than the entire Daluo star field. Chu Fengmian couldn't even begin to imagine how many treasures there were in the ruins of End alone. Once the 9 regions were discovered, it would be a catastrophe for the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian did not expect to be exposed so quickly. Chu Fengmian and the others could leave the 9 regions by chance. It was inevitable that someone would step into the 9 regions by chance. Chu Fengmian was extremely anxious when he thought of this. For example, the Cloud Feather Palace and many people that Chu Fengmian knew were still in the 9 regions. With the current strength of the 9 regions, it was simply a drop in the bucket against the entire Daluo star field. With the strength of the 9 regions, they would not be able to withstand this catastrophe. Stabilize your realm first. Once it is stabilized, we will set off for the 9 regions. Although Chu Fengmian was anxious, he quickly calmed down. Before heading to the 9 regions, he had to consolidate his strength. As one of the 4 regions, the countless treasures in the 9 regions would not only attract the attention of the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu and the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. It was even possible that the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu would head to the 9 regions. After all, judging from the treasures of Venerable Kanglin, there were heavenly beings in the 9 regions. The treasures of these heavenly beings were extremely attractive to the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Now that Chu Fengmian had returned from the 9 mystic celestial sovereigns' cave, he had obtained a lot of fortuitous encounters, but he had not stabilized his realm yet. Luo Shi had also just stepped into the 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Her realm was unstable and needed to consolidate it. With their strength, once they stabilized their realm, they would be able to fight against the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Luo Shi nodded when she heard Chu Fengmian's words. She sat on the ground and began to consolidate her realm. Chu Fengmian also sat on the ground. In his mind, the 9 mystic immortal art was opened. He wanted to comprehend the 4th style of the 9 mystic immortal art, Tianji. The last 4 styles of the 9 mystic immortal art were Tianji, 7 Kill, Tualuo, and Army Destroyer. The last 4 styles were different from the first 3. They were all created by the 9 mystic immortal venerable after he stepped into the heavenly being realm. The 4th style, Tianji, was dozens of times more mysterious than the first 3. Chu Fengmian originally planned to comprehend it after he stepped into the Emperor realm. However, after fighting with the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian also deeply understood the strength of the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. If he wanted to fight against the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, only the 9 mystic immortal art could achieve great results. Suddenly, a nebula appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. The 9 mystic immortal art was created by the 9 mystic immortal venerable with the Tao of Stars. Chu Fengmian carefully comprehended it. His comprehension of the martial Tao was stronger than that of the 9 mystic immortal venerable when he was a half-step into the heavenly being realm. Although the last 4 styles were comprehended by the 9 mystic immortal venerable when he was in the heavenly being realm, it didn't mean that he couldn't comprehend them. Behind Chu Fengmian, waves of spiritual energy turned into a star chart. Stars twinkled.
The power contained in the nebula was almost unimaginable. The immortal art created from it was almost unimaginable. One day and one night, the nebula behind Chufengmian grew denser and denser. One could vaguely see a sword light piercing through the nebula. The 9 mystic sword art. Chufengmian didn't just want to comprehend the 9 mystic immortal art. He also wanted to integrate it into his 9 realms sword art. The 9 mystic sword art was the most revealing chapter of the 9 realms sword art. It was also the most powerful chapter. The 4th page of the 9 mystic sword art was slowly condensing. Finally, it was condensed at this moment. The 4th style of the 9 mystic sword art, Heaven's Secret, was completed. It's finally done. Chufengmian opened his eyes, finally showing some joy on his face. The 4th style of the 9 mystic immortal art was much more difficult to comprehend than the first 3 styles. If Chufengmian hadn't comprehended it when he fought the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, he wouldn't have been able to comprehend it so quickly. The new sword art created from the 4th style of the 9 mystic immortal art was also unimaginably powerful. Chapter 1455. The 9 mystic celestial sovereign was a genius on the martial path. He might not be the most powerful heavenly being, but the 9 mystic celestial technique he created was more powerful than many famous celestial techniques. Even though Chufengmian was only a quasi-emperor now, once he used it, the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu and even a half-step heavenly being would not dare to underestimate this sword. Of course, with Chufengmian's strength, he could only use it once. Only the power to kill in one blow could be used as a trump card. But it was enough. A quasi-emperor had a trump card that even the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu was wary of. If this news were to spread, it would make countless experts go crazy. Chufengmian opened his eyes and looked in Luoshi's direction. Luoshi's aura was now much more stable. Although it seemed that her strength was a little weaker than when she had just broken through, her foundation was at least 20% stronger than when she had just broken through. She felt Chufengmian's gaze. Luoshi also stopped cultivating, slowly opened her eyes, and stood up. Her current realm had already stabilized. There was not much use in continuing to cultivate. The remaining strength that had not yet stabilized could only be completely stabilized through repeated battles. Without experiencing countless battles, no matter how powerful one's strength was, it would be useless if they couldn't display it. Let's go to the 9 regions, Chufengmian said. Chufengmian's original plan was to cultivate in the sacred land for a while, but now it seemed that there was no time for that. Once the 9 regions were exposed, there would be a storm of blood. Hanueli grew up in the cold snow pavilion of the Wuxing nation, and her family and master were there. Once there was a crisis, Hanueli would definitely not hesitate to take action. With her strength alone, it was impossible to contend against countless experts of the Daluo star domain. Chufengmian had to go there as soon as possible. Luoshi also nodded. She was also a person of the 9 regions, and she could not sit still when such a big event happened. Let's go. Chufengmian's figure flashed and walked out of the palace. At the same time, a jade talisman appeared in his hand and flew out, telling Green Dream and the others that he had left the sacred land. Brother Chu? Junior sister Luoshi? Chufengmian and Luoshi had just arrived outside the palace when they saw the 5 spirits sect's holy son and a group of people. The appearance of the lightning tribulation this time was something that they could feel. Now that they had gathered here, they wanted to see who had broken through. Junior sister Luoshi, you broke through? Mu Lin glanced at Luoshi, his eyes filled with shock. Didn't you just step into the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu? 2 months ago, Luoshi had broken through to the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu's realm. Now, she had broken through again. One had to know that for Emperor Gu, he might not even be able to stabilize his realm in 2 months. Such a fast speed was simply unimaginable. That's right, I obtained a Primordial Emperor Pill. Borrowing the medicinal energy of the Primordial Emperor Pill, I broke through in one go. Luoshi said. Senior brothers, I plan to leave the Holy Land and go to the 9 regions. Leave the 9 regions? Hearing this, the faces of Mu Lin and the other holy sons of the Five Spirits sect changed. In particular, Mu Lin frowned and said, "Junior sister Luo Shi, you want to leave the Holy Land and go to the 9 regions? The 9 regions are an extremely dangerous place. You probably don't know that the news of the 9 regions has spread out in the past few days. This time, it's not just the 4 major forces that know about this news. Almost the entire Daluo star domain knows about this news. Moreover, it's said that the neighboring star domains also know about this news. Countless experts plan to go to the 9 regions. Even the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu is going there personally. I'm afraid that your trip this time will be extremely dangerous. It's okay. Wealth comes from danger. This time, the more experts that go to the 9 regions, the greater the opportunity. I will go with Luo Shi," Chu Fengmian said. He still did not intend to reveal his secret as a member of the 9 regions. He only acted as a warrior who wanted to go to the 9 regions to search for treasures. This time, when the 9 regions were discovered, many holy sons of the Holy Land had already gone to the 9 regions for the treasures of the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian also planned to go to search for treasures, so it was not surprising. It's much safer with Brother Chu accompanying us. Mu Lin nodded when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Although Chu Fengmian was only at the quasi-emperor realm, they did not dare to underestimate his strength. At least, from how easily Chu Fengmian defeated Elder Wang and young Master Lin Lai. Even if all of them worked together, they might not be a match for Chu Fengmian. Brother Chu, you have to be careful. Many of the holy sons of the Sacred Academy sect and 6 Ultimates sect have also gone to the 9 regions. Mu Lin suddenly reminded him. He also knew Chu Fengmian's identity as a disciple of the Holy Dragon sect. Now, the feud between the Holy Dragon sect, the Sacred Academy sect, and the 6 Ultimates sect was known to everyone. It was said that the Sacred Academy sect had even offered a shocking reward internally. Anyone who could kill Chu Fengmian would be able to obtain a large amount of benefits. Because of this, some people already knew that Chu Fengmian had come to the 5 Spirits Hall. There were already many holy sons waiting outside the 5 Spirits Hall. They planned to kill Chu Fengmian and obtain the shocking reward. Killing a holy son was indeed a big deal. However, if it was under the protection of the Sacred Academy sect, they would at most receive some punishment. This punishment was not even worth mentioning when compared to the heaven-shaking rewards that were offered. Many thanks. Chu Fengmian also understood the meaning of Mu Lin's reminder. He nodded and looked at Luo Shi. Let's go. Whoosh. 2 streaks of light immediately flew out of the 5 Spirits Hall. At the same time, in another incomparably huge palace in the sacred grounds. The words Sacred Academy were written on the palace. It was the palace of the Sacred Academy sect, one of the 4 sections. Inside the palace, a few figures were seated and chatting. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. I didn't expect Chu Fengmian to come to the sacred grounds and go to the 5 Spirits Hall. He even announced that Luo Shi is his cultivation companion. One of the holy sons of the Sacred Academy sect sat on a chair and looked in the direction of the 5 Spirits Hall. He said coldly, Luo Shi is the woman designated by the young sect master. This guy is crazy. How dare he compete with the young sect master? This kid is a madman to begin with. Only this kid would do something like destroying the law enforcement hall. The other holy son of the Saint Academy sect said with a contemptuous smile. Chapter 1456. This brat is indeed a madman and can't be considered a match for the young sect master. However, if he gets too close to Luo Shi, it will affect the young sect master's plan. Another Sacred Academy sect disciple suddenly spoke up. The young sect master wants to condense the bloodline of 10,000 races. Luo Shi's bloodline cannot be missing. Although this brat is a madman, he's not easy to deal with. The Sacred Academy sect holy son who spoke first spoke coldly. This person can defeat Great Elder Heichen. I'm afraid his strength is not something we can deal with. Now that the young sect master has gone to the 9 territories to compete for the rumored extreme immortal artifact fragment, I'm afraid we are no match for this brat. It doesn't matter. If we want to kill this brat, we don't have to do it ourselves. I've already contacted little Emperor Yi and asked him to kill this brat. A saint of the Sane Academy sect said coldly. Little Emperor Yi? The price to pay to invite little Emperor Yi is not small. Is this person really willing to offend the Sacred Dragon sect? Hearing this, the other Sacred Academy sect Holy Sons were stunned. That's right. Little Emperor Yi has long wanted to kill this brat. Little Emperor Yi wants to cultivate a type of sword art. This brat's supreme sword chi is exactly what little Emperor Yi needs, so I took the opportunity to ask little Emperor Yi to take action. The Sacred Dragon sect Holy Sons spoke coldly. As long as we kill this brat, Luo Shi won't be able to do anything. Suddenly, 2 streaks of light flew out from the 5 Spirits Hall. It's that brat and Luo Shi. I'm going to inform little Emperor Yi to take action. When the Sacred Academy sect Holy Sun saw this scene, a jade talisman in his hand suddenly flickered. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Little Emperor Yi is ready to take action. As long as these 2 dare to leave the Holy Land, little Emperor Yi will take action. With little Emperor Yi taking action, no matter how strong Chu Fengmian is, he won't have a chance to escape. When the other Sacred Academy sect Holy Sons heard this, they all laughed. After all, little Emperor Yi was a genius who had received a strength inheritance. Even if he couldn't step into the Heaven Realm in the future and was looked down upon by many people, in the Emperor Realm, with his half-step Emperor Martial Dao, he was almost invincible. In the Sacred Land, not many people dared to make an enemy of little Yi Emperor. The group of saints of the Sane Academy sect all looked in the direction of Chu Fengmian's escape light. After leaving the 5 Spirits Hall, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi did not slow down in the slightest as they flew out of the Holy Land. Since they were going to the 9 regions, the first thing they had to do was leave the Sacred Land. Chu Fengmian is out. He's the one who made the Sacred Academy put a bounty worth more than 100 heaven-grade spiritual weapons, hundreds of divine pills, and even a few rare heavenly miraculous artifacts to kill? The Sacred Academy sect is willing to pay such a huge price for a mere quasi-emperor? This brat is the Holy Dragon sect's holy son after all. I'm afraid he won't be easy to deal with. With so many of us joining forces, why should we be afraid of a puny boundary emperor? The moment they saw Chu Fengmian's escape light appear, the saints who were squatting outside the 5 Spirits Hall exchanged glances with one another. Their eyes were filled with greed. Let's chase after him. We can't do anything in the Holy Land. Otherwise, we'll be violating the rules of the Holy Land. But if we kill him outside, no one will know who did it. We'll make our move once he leaves the Holy Land. Whoosh! More than a dozen escape lights chased in the direction of Chu Fengmian's escape light. There are so many saints. Luo Shi looked at the countless escape lights behind her and frowned. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi flew all the way. Luo Shi had already noticed that at least a dozen saints were chasing after them. Many of these saints were not from the 6 Ultimates sect or the Sacred Academy sect. But their current purpose was self-evident. The Sacred Academy sect is really generous. 100 heaven-grade spiritual weapons, thousands of divine pills, and many heavenly miraculous artifacts. No wonder these saints are so crazy. What a good move to kill with a borrowed knife. Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. The conversation between the saints could not be hidden from Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness. Everything was heard by Chu Fengmian. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. For these saints, many of them originally disliked Chu Fengmian and wanted to teach him a lesson. But now, the Sacred Academy sect had offered a bounty. There were many people who wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and had taken the bounty. Now that Chu Fengmian had shown his strength, the Sacred Academy sect was unwilling to fight with Chu Fengmian head-on. But they could kill with a borrowed knife and make all the saints in the sacred ground enemies with Chu Fengmian. With such a huge bounty, even the saints who had no enmity with Chu Fengmian would be greedy and want to kill Chu Fengmian. This move was ruthless. If these saints joined forces, it would be very troublesome for Chu Fengmian to deal with them. If they were in the sacred ground, these saints would not dare to deal with Chu Fengmian openly. But now that Chu Fengmian wanted to return to the 9 regions, he had to leave the sacred ground first. Once he left the sacred ground, these saints would no longer have any scruples. What should we do? Luo Shi looked at Chu Fengmian and asked. Given their strength, they might not necessarily be afraid of these chosens. However, these chosens were indeed troublesome. Moreover, these saints had the backing of all the experts in the entire Holy Dragon Secret Dimension. Those who could become saints in the Holy Dragon Secret Dimension all had backers. If they killed all these saints, it might cause even more trouble. Once we leave the sacred ground, we'll kill them all. Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. Now, he no longer had any scruples. Even if Chu Fengmian did not kill anyone now, these saints would not let him go. Moreover, in a few months, the Law Enforcement Hall's Emperor Gu would come out of seclusion. At that time, Chu Fengmian would face the pursuit of the real 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. There was no time to hesitate now. Chu Fengmian would kill anyone who dared to make an enemy out of him. Leave the sacred ground. Chu Fengmian looked at the saints chasing behind him, murderous intent surging in his eyes. But in the sacred ground, no one dared to kill. After all, the big shots in the Holy Dragon Secret Dimension all cultivated in the sacred ground. However, as long as they left the Holy Land, the rule of not allowing fellow disciples to kill each other would be broken. Almost all the experts who had reached the level of a saint had the means to kill without leaving a trace. Even if the big shots were to investigate, no one would know. Whoosh! Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's escape light was extremely fast. In a few seconds, they had passed through countless restrictive arrays and left the sacred ground. A starry sky appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's escape light rushed into the starry sky. That kid left the sacred ground. Chapter 1457. Not long after Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi left the sacred ground, more than a dozen streaks of light followed them. Judging from the attire of these streaks of light, they were all saints of the Holy Lands. However, the auras on their bodies were all different. It seemed like they came from different halls. However, there was a golden swastika behind their backs. They seemed to be from the same faction. This Chu Fengmian's streaks of light are fast. No wonder a newcomer can become a saint. He does have some tricks up his sleeve. Among these saints, a blonde saint was the most dazzling. He had reached the 7th Tribulation Emperor Gu, but in terms of strength, he was not inferior to the 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. He was also one of the best among the saints. He looked at Chu Fengmian's streaks of light and followed them. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Seems like the rumor is true. This man must have obtained great benefits in the immortal burial continent. That's why he could soar to the sky and possess such strength. As long as we kill this man, all of his opportunities will belong to us. Senior Brother Golden Supremacy, what are we waiting for? Let's charge forward and kill this person. We'll talk after we take his treasures. Another saint said coldly. In this time, the Sacred Academy sect has offered a sky-high reward. If we kill him, we'll split the reward equally. It's a huge fortune. Our 100 Halls Association has always been suppressed by the 4 sections. Once we kill this kid, our 100 Halls Association will be on equal footing with the 4 sections. This is a good opportunity. Now, most of the saints of the sacred ground have gone to the 9 regions. Only we can kill this kid now. Another saint said coldly. Attack! Hearing this, the leader, Golden Supremacy Saint, no longer hesitated and said directly. Suddenly, more than a dozen saints attacked together and gathered their spiritual power. Rumble! Several streaks of divine light shrouded Chu Fengmian. The power of these streaks of divine light sealed the space around Chu Fengmian. Can't hold back anymore? Chu Fengmian looked at the streaks of divine light approaching and sneered. He simply stopped and waited for the streaks of divine light to envelop him. This group of saints was impatient. They had just left the sacred ground and were ready to attack. However, the sooner he acted, the sooner Chu Fengmian could deal with them. Whoosh! Several streaks of light rapidly flew over. Immediately, the dozen or so saints surrounded Chu Fengmian. When the Chosens arrived, they also conjured the power of the divine light and formed a cage around Chu Fengmian, trapping him within. Brat, you're not running away? The leader, Jianwang, looked at Chu Fengmian with mockery in his eyes. Brat, or do you think that you can't escape? It's good for you to know your place. Since you're so tactful, hand over all your fortuitous encounters and we'll give you a quick death. Chu Fengmian, you have no chance of escaping today. Be obedient and don't suffer. Forget it, senior brother Jianwang. Why waste your breath on this person? Just kill him. Hurry up and kill him so that we can return to the sacred ground and ask for the reward from the Sacred Academy sect. The group of saints discussed with each other and stared at Chu Fengmian. They already saw Chu Fengmian as their prey. Jianwang, I advise you not to make a mistake. Luo Shi stared at the group of saints in front of her and said coldly. Does the 100 Halls Assembly want to be enemies with the 5 Spirits sect? We just want to kill this brat. It has nothing to do with the 5 Spirits sect. Luo Shi, you're like a clay Buddha crossing the river. You can't even protect yourself. Why do you want to protect this brat? Jianwang stared at Luo Shi and sneered disdainfully. Even if the two of you join forces, do you think you're a match for so many of us? I advise you not to waste your energy. Luo Shi, if we didn't want to offend Wu Dao, do you think you can leave here alive today? Another saint sneered. Don't count on the group of saints from the 5 Spirits sect to save you. The one who wants to kill this brat is the Sacred Academy sect. We're just doing this for the reward. Even the group of saints from the 5 Spirits sect wouldn't dare to be enemies with the Sacred Academy sect. If you really want to protect him, think carefully. Jianwang stared at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. Brat, do you want to obediently hand over the fortuitous encounter and commit suicide, or be killed by us? Choose one. A bunch of trash. Who do you think you are? Just a dozen saints. You don't even have an 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. You want to kill me? Chu Fengmian looked at the group of saints without any panic on his face. Instead, he revealed a disdainful smile. Today should be the day where none of you can leave here alive. Boom! After Chu Fengmian finished speaking, his body suddenly moved. In an instant, he waved his hand and attacked one of the saints closest to Chu Fengmian. Spiritual energy churned in Chu Fengmian's palm and instantly transformed into a dragon claw. The moment it swept out, it completely disintegrated the surrounding seal. At the same time, an even more terrifying power swept towards the group of Shengzis with this claw. All of you, die! At this moment, Chu Fengmian fully activated the power of the Battle Dragon bloodline. The shadow of the ancient Battle Dragon shrouded Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's every move was like a real battle dragon that swept across the world. These saints of the 100 Halls Conference didn't expect Chu Fengmian to suddenly attack, especially the saint closest to Chu Fengmian. The moment he reacted, the dragon claw had already arrived in front of him. Boom! The spiritual energy that he had just condensed was instantly shattered by the dragon claw. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere as his body was forcefully torn apart. At the same time, a vortex suddenly formed and devoured this mass of flesh and blood on the spot. A saint was killed in one move. His flesh and blood were completely devoured, and there was no possibility of his body being reconstructed. Chu Fengmian showed no mercy. After killing the Shengzi, his battle dragon claw blasted towards the other Shengzi. Chu Fengmian didn't plan on letting any of these people leave alive today. Since he was going to kill them, he would start a massacre and kill them thoroughly. Boom! 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 Another 3 saints were completely annihilated by the dragon claw and killed on the spot. Chapter 1458. A bloody mist filled the starry sky. The 4 chosen had been killed on the spot, filling the air with the stench of blood. In the blink of an eye, a total of 4 chosen had died at Chu Fengmian's hands.
Golden Venerate and the other chosen were shocked when they saw this scene. They thought that Chu Fengmian was only a quasi-emperor. At most, he was just a nobody who had had some fortuitous encounters. When Chu Fengmian had destroyed the law enforcement hall, the news hadn't spread in the sacred land. In their opinion, Chu Fengmian was at most a chosen who had had some fortuitous encounters. A holy son could fight 1 against 3, 1 against 5, and even 1 against 10? One had to know that the chosen of the sacred dragon mystic domain were a group of proud sons of heaven. They were geniuses among geniuses. Unless they were a monster like Emperor Yi, who would dare say that they could fight 1 against 10? However, when they saw Chu Fengmian kill the 4 chosen with a single move, Golden Venerate and the others understood. Chu Fengmian wasn't an ant like they had imagined. He was a true dragon. Chu Fengmian had concealed his strength so deeply. Kill. Attack together. This kid is a quasi-emperor after all. How heaven-defying can a quasi-emperor be? He can't use this kind of killing move more than a few times. Golden Venerate roared. Without the slightest hesitation, he clenched his fists and a long spear condensed in his palm. The long spear emitted rays of golden light. The space around the golden light was forcibly torn apart by its sharpness. Sky-ripping spear. The long spear in Golden Venerate's hand immediately stabbed at Chu Fengmian. The speed of the spear was extremely fast. A golden light flashed and a cold killing intent enveloped Chu Fengmian's body. A sense of danger was approaching. Golden Venerate wasn't the only one. The other chosen had also attacked at the same time. After witnessing Chu Fengmian's strength, the chosen understood that Chu Fengmian was definitely an extremely dangerous person. Their first move was a killing move. Killing moves filled the sky as they bombarded Chu Fengmian. Die! All the remaining chosens attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. A bunch of ants. Primogenitor, first move. Chu Fengmian took a step forward. Above his body, the power of the ancestral sky dragon's bloodline was activated. Power gathered in the palm of his hand. Boom! That single claw strike caused the entire world to tremble. Even the starry skies were trembling. All of the killing moves were destroyed by that single claw strike. The Golden Venerate's long spear was snapped in half by the power of this claw. It lost its power and broke into 2 halves in the air. Blood splattered everywhere. The power of the chosen was shattered by this claw. Not a single one of them survived. Even the Golden Venerate suffered the same fate, turning into a mist of blood. The clouds of blood mist were still struggling in the air, trying to escape. But Chu Fengmian wouldn't give them the chance. With a thought, Chu Fengmian operated the sky-devouring secret technique. Suddenly, a vortex appeared behind him. The blood essences of these saints were devoured by the heaven-devouring mystic technique and sent to the divine tree for refinement. These chosen were all as strong as Emperor Gu. Furthermore, each of them had obtained many fortuitous encounters. Their blood qi contained surging spiritual energy, which was enough for the divine tree to grow again after being devoured. What's going on? What happened? Inside a large hall in the Holy Land, hundreds of tablets of various sizes were placed in the center of the hall. Each tablet had a name and a trace of spiritual energy recorded on it. A few Shengzis in the hall suddenly saw an ancestral tablet shatter. These memorial tablets represented the lives of the chosen. When a memorial tablet was broken, it meant that a chosen had fallen. Another chosen has fallen? Just as these people were discussing, 3 more tablets shattered one after another. It wasn't over yet. In just a few seconds, more than 10 tablets shattered. The chosens in the palace could no longer hold back their shock when they saw this scene. Something big has happened. What's going on? Why are the tablets of golden exalted and the others shattered? How long has it been? Didn't they just leave the sacred ground? The chosen of the 100 Hall Conference changed their expressions. They all knew what Golden Exalted and the others had gone to do. However, now that the tablets of Golden Exalted and the others had shattered, it meant that they had fallen. Quick, inform the higher-ups. Even the sacred dragon mystic realm couldn't bear the loss of more than 10 chosen. The sacred dragon mystic realm had existed for hundreds of thousands of years and had only nurtured thousands of chosen. Losing more than 10 chosen in one go was something that the sacred dragon mystic realm would need to spend thousands of years to recover. Streaks of light immediately flew out of the main hall. Golden Exalted and the others actually failed? In the Sacred Academy Hall, a few chosen of the Sacred Academy sect had gloomy expressions when they saw this. I didn't expect that we had underestimated this kid. Even Golden Exalted and the others couldn't kill him? It seems that this kid is stronger than we thought. However, there's still Little Emperor Yi. Little Emperor Yi should be able to kill him. Several saints of the Saint Academy sect were talking to each other. Their gazes were solemn. Even if Little Emperor Yi makes a move, he might not be able to kill that brat. Inform the holy scions of the 9 regions. The leader of the chosen said calmly. This kid left with Luoshi. He most likely plans to go to the 9 regions. The experts of our sacred ground are all in the 9 regions. Once we spread the news, they will be surrounded and attacked when they reach the 9 regions. At that time, there will be so many experts. This kid won't be able to survive. Alright, let's do that. The chosen took out their jade talismans and began to transmit the news. On the other side, in the Star Sea, Chu Fengmian and Luoshi didn't leave after killing Golden Exalted and the others. The reason for that was because a figure had suddenly appeared before them and blocked their path. It was a young man in green robes. He looked extremely ordinary, but the aura on his body gave off an extremely ancient feeling. He was even more ancient than many of the ancient elders in the sacred dragon mystic realm. It was as if he had come from the ancient age. Only experts who had lived for countless years could have such a feeling. However, it had appeared on this young man. Chu Fengmian could even tell that this young man wasn't much older than Chu Fengmian. He wasn't even 30 years old. Chapter 1459. The green-robed young man in front of him was only a quasi-emperor, but Chu Fengmian could feel immense pressure from him. The pressure this green-robed young man gave Chu Fengmian was even greater than that of the 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu, Blood God Emperor Gu. It was unfathomable. This person isn't easy to deal with. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed. He could see that this green-robed young man was a formidable opponent. Little Emperor Yi. Luoshi called out coldly the moment she saw the green-robed young man. Chu Fengmian also knew the identity of this green-robed young man. Little Emperor Yi had received Emperor Ye's power inheritance and was known as one of the strongest holy sons. Only such a character could give Chu Fengmian such immense pressure. When Long Qianju said that Little Emperor Yi and Little Ju Di were strong enough to fight 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu, Chu Fengmian didn't believe it. Now that he saw Little Emperor Yi with his own eyes, Chu Fengmian knew that this person was much stronger than 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu. Although he wasn't as strong as 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu, 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu couldn't kill Little Emperor Yi. At most, he could defeat him. To be able to survive 9 Tribulation Emperor Gu's attack was already terrifying, let alone a mere quasi-emperor. Little Emperor Yi, what are you planning to do here? Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with seriousness. He thought that after dealing with Jin Zun and the others, he could safely return to the 9 territories with Luoshi. As long as he returned to the 9 territories and obtained some treasures, Chu Fengmian had a good chance of stepping into the Emperor realm in one fell swoop. Chu Fengmian knew that there were many treasures in the Origin realm, but because he wasn't strong enough at the time, he couldn't obtain them. This time, Chu Fengmian wanted to return to the 9 territories, and the first thing he wanted to do was sweep through the treasures of the Origin realm to improve his strength. Once he stepped into the Emperor realm, Chu Fengmian would be able to fight even a 9th-grade ancient emperor. He hadn't expected Little Emperor Yi to appear after dealing with Jin Zun. Although Little Emperor Yi was just one person, his true strength was dozens of times stronger than Golden Exalt and the others combined. I'm only here to borrow something from you. Since you know who I am, let's cut the crap. I have no enmity with your holy dragon sect and I don't intend to kill you. Little Yi looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was sizing up his prey. It was as if Chu Fengmian was already in his bag. I need to condense a sword technique. I need your supreme sword chi. I know you have a total of 1,800 supreme sword chi. Hand them over and I can let you leave. You want the supreme sword chi? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. Since little Emperor Yi had come, Chu Fengmian knew that he didn't come with good intentions. Now, he wanted to ask Chu Fengmian for the supreme sword energy. The supreme sword chi was a supreme treasure of the sword Dao. As a sword cultivator, how could Chu Fengmian give it to little Emperor Yi for free? The supreme sword chi had already fused with Chu Fengmian's 9-region sword technique. If he handed over 1,800 supreme sword chi, Chu Fengmian's 9-region sword technique would suffer a great loss. What's more, even if the supreme sword chi was useless, Chu Fengmian wouldn't hand it over. He had never been afraid of threats in his life. Murderous intent flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. It seemed that things weren't going to be good between him and little Emperor Yi today. You don't plan to hand it over? I'm just giving you a chance. Although your strength is not bad, you're only above average in the Holy Land. You can't be considered a master. Little Emperor Yi looked at Chu Fengmian with incomparable contempt. Forget it. So what if you're a disciple of the Holy Dragon sect? In a few months, the Holy Dragon sect will completely disappear from the Holy Dragon secret domain. I'll let you go first. Hand over the supreme sword chi or die. Little Emperor Yi took a step forward and stared at Chu Fengmian. Shocking murderous intent surged from his body. Come and take it if you have the ability. Without batting an eyelid, Chu Fengmian pushed the power of his bloodline to the limit. What an ignorant little fellow. I gave you a chance. Since you don't know how to cherish it, don't blame me for being merciless. Little Emperor Yi shook his head as he watched. Suddenly, little Emperor Yi's figure moved. His spiritual power condensed at the tip of his finger and he quietly pointed it at Chu Fengmian. Dustless. Rumble. This finger was called Dustless. When it was pointed, heaven and earth were immediately subjected to an incomparably great pressure. Waves of spiritual power, strong to an unimaginable extent, immediately fell under this finger. The power of this finger alone was more terrifying than the power of an 8th tribulation Emperor Gu. The surging spiritual power was like a long river, drowning everything. Primal chaos. Beside Chu Fengmian, Luo Shi gathered her spiritual power and attacked in an instant. She could tell that little Emperor Yi wasn't someone Golden Exalt and the others could compare to. Even she couldn't stay out of this. An ancient primal chaos gate opened behind Luo Shi. Waves of primal chaos aura flew out and condensed in Luo Shi's palm. It transformed into a 5-colored ray of divine light that shot into the sky. Luo Shi, do you think I don't dare to kill you? Others may be afraid of Wu Dao, but I'm not. If I kill you, Wu Dao won't dare to cause trouble for me. So what if your 8th tribulation Emperor Gu? I, little Emperor Yi, have killed countless 8 tribulation ancient emperors. Today, I'll add another one to the list. Little Emperor Yi smiled coldly as he watched Luo Shi attack. He pointed his finger and the enormous spiritual power collided with the 5-colored ray of divine light. Under this power, the 5-colored ray of divine light was shattered. It was a pure collision of power. Although little Emperor Yi was only in the boundary emperor realm, his pure power was stronger than Luo Shi's, who had already stepped into the 8th tribulation Emperor Gu. This was the strength of a power inheritance. Even if one couldn't step into the heaven realm in the future. But little Emperor Yi was almost invincible in the emperor realm. Your bloodline is not bad. It should be the bloodline of an innate divine beast. Today, I'll kill you and take your bloodline first. Little Emperor Yi looked at Luo Shi. Suddenly, he gathered his spiritual power again and pointed with his finger. With a single point, the world shook. Suddenly, the entire starry sky was enveloped by the power of this finger. An incomparably huge power enveloped Luo Shi's body, breaking the spiritual power around her bit by bit. It was going to kill Luo Shi with a single point. Chapter 1460. Little Emperor Yi, I don't care what kind of power you've inherited, but since you dared to provoke me, today is the day you die. Chu Fengmian's bloodline power was activated at this moment. The power of the soaring serpent transformation also burst forth. Chu Fengmian's aura soared dozens of times. This kind of power was completely different from the previous Chu Fengmian. The World's Edge sword case appeared behind Chu Fengmian. Two dazzling sword lights immediately flew out and slashed toward Little Emperor Yi. Do you think you're invincible just because you've inherited power? You're just a cripple. How dare you strut around in front of me? Cripple? Little Emperor Yi's expression changed when he heard this. He couldn't restrain his anger and was thoroughly enraged. Because he'd received the power inheritance, Little Emperor Yi would never be able to step into the sky-human realm. Therefore, he was a cripple. However, because of his power, no one in the sacred land dared to speak to him like this. Now that Chu Fengmian had spoken, he directly poked at his sore spot and immediately went crazy. Just because you call me a cripple, I'm going to kill you today. No, I'm going to torture you and cripple your cultivation. I'm going to turn you into a cripple like this. Little Emperor Yi said fiercely. A puny quasi-emperor dares to insult me? Go to hell. In terms of sword skills? Then let's see whose sword skills are stronger. Buzz. A green spiritual sword suddenly condensed in front of Little Emperor Yi. As it fell, it split into millions of swords and bombarded Chu Fengmian's two sword lights. At the same time, a terrifying sword intent enveloped Little Emperor Yi's body. The sword intent of the Sword God Realm. Little Emperor Yi also had the sword intent of the Sword God Realm. Moreover, it wasn't the kind that had just entered the Sword God Realm. His comprehension of the Sword Dao wasn't the slightest bit inferior to Chu Fengmian before he'd obtained the Sword Dao totem. Millions of swords collided with the two sword lights from the World's Edge sword case. In an instant, they'd clashed millions of times and the sword lights were shattered one after another. However, the sword lights had also exhausted their power and returned to Chu Fengmian's hand. Little Emperor Yi's sword Dao was almost on par with Chu Fengmian's. What a powerful sword intent. No, this isn't your sword intent. It's Emperor Yi's. Chu Fengmian stared at Little Emperor Yi. He could also tell where this sword will had come from. Little Emperor Yi had inherited Emperor Yi's legacy and his martial comprehension. This sword will had once belonged to Emperor Yi. Now, Little Emperor Yi could also use it at will. I am Emperor Yi, and Emperor Yi is me. Of course this is my power. Brat, it seems you've had quite a few fortuitous encounters. You were actually able to withstand my attack. Young Emperor Yi stared at Chu Fengmian and sneered. Very well, I'll kill you today. Even if I can't step into the celestial realm in the future, that doesn't mean I can't kill celestials. Today, both of you will die here. It is your honor to be able to become my strength. Little Emperor Yi's hands moved. An ancient spear suddenly condensed and shot into the space before him. As the spear shot into the space, the surrounding space suddenly became incomparably congealed. The effect was almost the same as when Chu Fengmian used the Jianwang transformation to seal off space. The Skylocking Spear. That's Emperor Yi's spiritual weapon. It's also fallen into this person's hands. Luo Shi's face darkened when she saw this. Little Emperor Yi hadn't just inherited Emperor Yi's martial Dao. Even Emperor Yi's spiritual weapon had fallen into his hands. Chu Fengmian, this little Emperor Yi isn't easy to deal with. Let's join forces and fight our way out. Luo Shi secretly transmitted her voice. Little Emperor Yi's strength had already exceeded her estimations. Although there had always been rumors about Little Emperor Yi's strength in the sacred land, after actually fighting him, she realized that he was even more difficult to deal with than the rumors made him out to be. What? You want to escape? Neither of you will be able to escape today. Little Emperor Yi seemed to sense Luo Shi's words and sneered. With a move of his hand, the tip of his green sword flashed and slashed towards Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Escape? Who said I wanted to escape? Little Emperor Yi,
I'll tell you today that your sword technique isn't even worth mentioning in front of me. The sword intent of the divine sword realm enveloped Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian sneered. When he saw little Emperor Ye's sword strike, the tip of his sword flickered and he also slashed out with it. The moment this sword strike was unleashed, it drew upon the endless power of the stars in the surroundings and endlessly supported Chu Fengmian's sword. First move of the 9 mysterious sword technique. Voracious Wolf. Rumble. Endless power of the stars enveloped the sword. The sword light was like a river of stars that enveloped everything. When little Emperor Ye's sword strike struck the river of stars, they were all crushed by the endless power of the stars. What kind of sword technique is this? There's actually a sword technique like this in the heavens? When little Emperor Yi saw Chu Fengmian's sword light, his face was filled with disbelief. Little Emperor Yi had received Emperor Ye's inheritance and even received all of Emperor Ye's memories. Back then, Emperor Yi had stood at the peak of his generation and knew countless sword techniques. However, he'd never seen Chu Fengmian use a sword technique like this before. Although the 9 profound sword technique had evolved from the 9 profound immortal technique, it was still a sword technique that Chu Fengmian had created. Even little Emperor Yi didn't know about it. Emperor Ye's 3 swords. Shattering the sea. Little Emperor Ye's hand moved and the sword in his hand was completely different from before. He poured spiritual power into it and it immediately transformed into a 10,000-foot-long sword light. Within this 10,000-foot-long sword light, ancient runes condensed. The sword slashed down from the sky and into the sea of stars. Suddenly, the sword chi within the sea of stars surged and was shattered by the shattering the sea. Rays of sword light flew out and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Emperor Ye's 3 swords. Emperor Ye's ultimate technique. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He could also see how terrifying this sword technique was. Emperor Ye's 3 swords was already infinitely close to an immortal technique. If Emperor Yi hadn't been just a half-step celestial realm cultivator back then and had truly stepped into the celestial realm and become a celestial realm cultivator, Emperor Ye's 3 swords would be a true immortal technique. However, although Emperor Ye's 3 swords were strong, Chu Fengmian's 9 profound sword technique wasn't weak at all. Moreover, his 9 profound sword technique was a true immortal technique. Chapter 1461. As the sword chi neared Chu Fengmian's body, his sword moved again. The power of the stars filled the sky once more and bolstered the sword in his hand. The power of the stars that had shattered the galaxy returned to Chu Fengmian's sword. On the tip of the sword in Chu Fengmian's hand, one could see specks of starry river. Every one of them contained terrifying power. In an instant, the sword was unsheathed. The sword chi was like a river of stars that swept across. Countless sword chi that approached Chu Fengmian were destroyed by the sword chi. This river of stars was aimed directly at little Emperor Yi, intending to drown him beneath it. Emperor Ye's 2nd sword. Shatter the earth. Little Emperor Yi roared angrily. The sword intent in his hand condensed into a 2nd sword and slashed down. The moment he waved his sword, countless sword chi shot through the sky. In an instant, the specks of stars were destroyed. You should be proud that you were able to take one of my attacks. But with this one, you must die. Little Emperor Yi said coldly. Die. Rumble. A beam of sword light shot up into the sky. It was only 300 meters long, but it contained even more power than the sword light that was 10,000 meters long. It was enough to see exactly how terrifying the power was gathered within it. Under the sharpness, there was practically no one who could block it. The river of stars, the sky full of stars, the sword chi, everything was destroyed by this sword. It was a sword that could shatter the heavens and shatter the earth. The 3rd move of the 9 profound sword technique. Lutsuan. Chu Fengmian's expression was incomparably calm. When Emperor Yi used the 2nd sword technique, his sword struck out at the same time. The power of Emperor Ye's 3 swords was even more astonishing than Chu Fengmian had imagined. Emperor Ye's 3 swords should have been incomparably close to the first 3 moves of the 9 profound sword technique.
But Chu Fengmian wasn't the Nine Profound Immortal Sovereign. Even with the Nine Profound Sword technique, he could only display about 70% of its power. Little Emperor Yi, however, hadn't just inherited Emperor Ye's power. He'd also inherited Emperor Ye's memories and Emperor Ye's martial path. The three swords he'd unleashed were no different from the real Emperor Ye's. As a result, Little Emperor Yi had the upper hand in this clash of swords. Rumble. The two swords clashed in the air and shattered at the same time. Little Emperor Ye's expression grew serious. He originally thought that dealing with Chu Fengmian would be as easy as crushing an ant. However, although he had the upper hand on the surface, he didn't gain any advantage at all in these few confrontations. Two of Emperor Ye's three swords had been used. Now, young Emperor Ye's hopes of killing Chu Fengmian rested entirely on this third sword strike. An ancient aura surged from Little Emperor Ye's body. This was Emperor Ye's power. It had always been hidden within Little Emperor Ye's body. It came from the ancient Emperor Yi, and it began to boil. Wait until I've killed you, kid. Once I've taken your fortune, my power will reach unimaginable heights. Then who cares about martial arts? Little Judy, let's see who will dare to challenge me. Little Emperor Yi stared at Chu Fengmian, his eyes burning with desire. He had already thought of what level his strength would reach once he killed Chu Fengmian and obtained all of Chu Fengmian's treasures. It would be a level he couldn't even imagine. Wu Dao, Little Judy, they wouldn't be his match. In that moment, Little Emperor Ye's power was gathered to the limit. Without the slightest hesitation, the sword in his hand moved again. A tall, indistinct shadow slowly appeared behind him. It was Emperor Ye's shadow. As Little Emperor Yi drew out Emperor Ye's power, the shadow coalesced into being. Emperor Ye's shadow slowly merged with Little Emperor Ye's. It was as though the once invincible Emperor Yi had come back to life. Emperor Ye's third sword. Cleave through the air. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi felt an incomparable pressure as Little Emperor Ye's sword descended. Even Chu Fengmian, who'd experienced countless battles of life and death, felt his body tremble. Now, Chu Fengmian seemed to be fighting with a real expert half a step into the celestial being realm, a legendary expert. Die! Kid, your sword skills, your woman, your fortune, all of it will belong to me, Little Emperor Yi. Little Emperor Yi shouted excitedly. He watched as the sword gradually closed in on Chu Fengmian. Is this the last sword? Even before the tip of the sword came crashing down, Chu Fengmian could clearly sense how powerful it was. It was definitely more powerful than any sword art Chu Fengmian had ever seen. But Chu Fengmian's face showed no fear. On the contrary, he looked excited. He stopped Luo Shi, who was about to attack, and stepped forward alone. I'll use your blood as a sacrifice to this sword. Chu Fengmian looked at Little Emperor Yi. Little Emperor Yi's body exuded a unique power. This power was enough to see through history and see into the future. A power that transcended time and space coalesced beneath Chu Fengmian's sword. The fourth move of the Nine Profound Sword Art. Heavenly Secrets. Chu Fengmian had comprehended this new move during his seclusion in the Five Spirits Hall. Today, his opponent had finally arrived. Just as the sword approached, Chu Fengmian's sword slashed out. Suddenly, the primeval bronze gate and the gate of Dharma and Logos appeared behind Chu Fengmian, bolstering his body. At the same time, the roots of the divine tree tightly condensed the crystallized flesh on Chu Fengmian's body. The fourth move of the Nine Profound Sword Art was no longer a martial technique, but a true immortal technique. As a mortal, one had to pay a great price to use an immortal technique. This was Chu Fengmian's trump card. Facing Little Emperor Yi, Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate to use it. Sword. With a slash of the sword, sword light filled the sky. These sword lights seemed to come from different eras, from one era to another. They followed Chu Fengmian's sword and gathered together to form a sword that transcended the river of time. The moment the sword lights collided, the world seemed to come to a standstill. In the blink of an eye, more than half of Little Emperor Yi's sword was broken, while Chu Fengmian's sword light was still endless. Rumble. Little Emperor Ye's body was sent flying before his incredulous eyes. The sword chi that filled the sky tore his body apart, turning him into a bloody mist. An immoral technique. This is an immoral technique. You actually obtained an immoral technique. You shouldn't have been able to obtain something like this. I'll remember you. Wait until my strength improves, then I'll kill you and take this immoral technique. Just you wait. Chapter 1462. Little Emperor Ye's methods were endless. Chu Feng Mian used the power of the Jianwang transformation, but failed to stop Little Emperor Yi. He could only watch as Little Emperor Yi left. Although Chu Feng Mian defeated Little Emperor Yi, he couldn't kill him. I didn't expect that even Little Emperor Yi would make a move. Luo Shi's eyes also showed some worry. Little Emperor Yi was one of the most difficult to deal with among the Holy Land's holy sons. Today, Chu Feng Mian destroyed Little Emperor Ye's body. The hatred between him and Little Emperor Yi was irreconcilable. Especially after Little Emperor Yi learned that Chu Feng Mian had the 9 profound immoral technique, there was no way he would let Chu Feng Mian go. After this battle, Little Emperor Yi would definitely break through to the Emperor realm. With Little Emperor Ye's talent and accumulation, once he stepped into the Emperor realm, his strength would most likely soar dozens of times. The next time I fight Little Emperor Yi, it won't be so simple, Luo Shi said worriedly. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Little Emperor Yi was defeated by me this time, and I'll defeat you next time as well. Moreover, Little Emperor Ye's body was destroyed by me this time. If he wants to step into the Emperor realm, he'll need to cultivate bitterly for a while. Chu Feng Mian's eyes showed incomparable confidence. This time, Chu Feng Mian returned to the 9 territories. He was determined to step into the Emperor realm. Chu Feng Mian's accumulation was much more terrifying than Little Emperor Ye's. After all, Little Yi Emperor had received a strength inheritance, while Chu Feng Mian's current strength was obtained by himself. Once Chu Feng Mian and Little Yi Emperor stepped into the Emperor realm at the same time, Little Yi Emperor would be left far behind. Once Chu Feng Mian also stepped into the Emperor realm, Little Emperor Yi would be nothing but an ant. However, this time, Chu Feng Mian could only be considered a Pyrrhic victory against Little Emperor Yi. He had used all his trump cards, even the 4th style of the 9 profound sword art. This allowed Little Emperor Yi to know that Chu Feng Mian had obtained the secret of the 9 profound sword art. Once this secret was exposed, it would bring endless trouble to Chu Feng Mian. However, Little Emperor Yi might not reveal this secret. Who didn't want the 9 profound immoral technique? Little Emperor Yi also wanted the 9 mysteries sword art for himself. Given Little Emperor Leaf's arrogant personality, after being defeated by Chu Fengmian, he would most likely go into secluded meditation. Then he would come back to find Chu Fengmian, kill him, and take the 9 profound immoral art. During this time, Chu Fengmian shouldn't have to worry about the 9 profound immoral art being exposed. However, this also reminded Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could use the first 3 moves of the 9 profound sword art. After all, it was still within the category of martial skills. Even if others saw it, they would not be able to guess that it was the 9 profound immoral technique. However, the 4th style was the real immoral art. There were very few immoral arts in the world. The most recent one was the 9 mysterious immoral art that had appeared in the immoral burial continent. On top of that, Chu Fengmian must have obtained a lot of fortuitous encounters after returning from the immoral burial continent. It was obvious that the 9 profound immoral art had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. That would be troublesome. If he didn't have the confidence to kill, it was better not to use the 4th style. What should we do? Are we still going to the 9 realms? Luo Shi asked. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi had just left the sacred land when they were ambushed twice. Venerated Kim and the others were fine, but young Emperor's attack had almost caused Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi to suffer heavy losses. If Chu Fengmian hadn't comprehended the 4th style of the 9 profound sword art, then even if they'd escaped with their lives they would have had to pay a heavy price. Among the sacred lands chosen, there were others who were on equal footing with young Emperor. Little Ju Di,
Wu Dao, and a few other older chosen were no less powerful than young Emperor. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, there was still a chance he'd fail miserably in the face of repeated attacks. Let's go. Chu Fengmian nodded, his voice resolute. He had to go to the Nine Realms. The ruins of the Sword Dao School should still be in the Nine Realms. Chu Fengmian wouldn't allow anyone to take it away. However, Chu Fengmian also understood that if he swaggered into the Nine Realms, the ambushes along the way would annoy him to death. Even young Emperor was willing to accept the Academy's offer, much less the others. If word of this got out, it wouldn't just be the chosen of the Sacred Land who'd come after Chu Fengmian. Experts from other powers would want to take his head and claim the bounty. Let's change the method and go to the Nine Realms. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed. He had a plan. Nirvana. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's body changed. He took on the appearance of a young man. This was his appearance from his past life. He was a small cultivator, but his eyes were resolute. This is the Nirvana rebirth formula. It will allow you to change your appearance and hide your identity. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi. With a thought, he transmitted a method into her mind. The Nirvana rebirth formula was the method of an ancient sect, the Sky Snatcher sect. This sect was very unique. They stole for a living, and had plundered the treasuries of countless other sects. Eventually, their deeds were exposed and they were destroyed. However, the Nirvana rebirth formula was passed down and obtained by the Sword Dao sect. In his past life, Chu Fengmian thought it was fun and memorized it. It just so happened that he had a use for it now. The Nirvana rebirth formula wasn't difficult to learn. Luo Shi closed her eyes and pondered for a few seconds. She learned it all. Luo Shi's body also changed into a new appearance. Although she was also an incomparably beautiful woman, her face was as cold as ice. People who saw her wouldn't dare approach her. Her temperament was completely different from Luo Shi's. At the same time, Luo Shi suppressed her realm to that of a quasi-emperor. An 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu was too dazzling no matter where he was. After all, an 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu was a big shot among the 4 major powers. For example, Emperor Yan, as an 8 Tribulation Emperor Gu, was already the master of a continent. The 3 demon emperors of the ancient monster continent were all 7 Tribulation Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian didn't need to hide his realm. He was a quasi-emperor. Such a realm was neither low nor high. He was considered a big shot and wouldn't be looked down upon. Where is the closest continent to here? Chu Fengmian asked Luo Shi. This was his first time in the Sacred Land. Long Qinjue had brought him here. Chu Fengmian didn't know anything about the nearby area. The closest continent to here should be the Tiandu continent. It's a level 6 continent. Luo Shi took out a jade talisman and injected spiritual energy into it. A star map of the surrounding area appeared. Chapter 1463. There were thousands of continents in the Daluo star field, and most of them were recorded in the star map. The Tiandu continent was one of the level 6 continents. There were hundreds of level 6 continents in the Daluo star field, and most level 6 continents did not have many elites. An 8 Calamity Emperor Gu was already at the peak, and there were only a few 7 Calamity Emperor Gu. If Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi went there, no one would be able to discover their identities. Let's go to the Tiandu continent. Let's go. With that, Chu Fengmian grabbed Hanueli and turned into a ray of light, flying in the direction of the Tiandu continent. After being attacked one after another, Chu Fengmian understood that his identity was too sensitive, and he could not swagger into the 9 regions. He planned to find an expedition team to the 9 regions. The coordinates of the 9 regions had been exposed, and all the warriors and demon gods in the Daluo star field were going to the 9 regions in search of treasures. However, the 9 regions was once one of the 4 ancient sacred regions, so many warriors and demon gods would go there in groups to reduce the danger. Expedition teams were born in this way. In the Sacred Dragon secret realm, even many saints who had reached the level of Emperor Gu chose to go there in groups. There should be such expedition teams in every continent. Chu Fengmian planned to join one of the expedition teams and go to the 9 regions with them. This way, no one would be able to detect his whereabouts, and he could return to the 9 regions without anyone noticing, avoiding a lot of trouble. Chu Fengmian changed his figure for this purpose. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's escape light was extremely fast, and they soon saw a huge continent in front of them. This continent was even bigger than the ancient monster continent. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's escape light gradually descended, and their speed also slowed down. There was no difference between them and a real quasi-emperor. As the two of them flew forward, they could vaguely see a gigantic city in front of them. This city was even bigger and more prosperous than the imperial capital of the ancient monster continent. At a glance, there were tens of millions of warriors and demon gods in it. The streets were crowded with people and carriages, as tall buildings rose from the ground. This was the largest city in the Tiandu continent, the Tiandu City. All the powerhouses of the Tiandu continent were here. At a glance, there were countless warriors and demon gods in the divine power realm, and life and death realm. However, there were not many people who had stepped onto the steps of life and death. There were only 1 or 2 out of 10. As for quasi-emperors, there were very few. This was about the strength of the Tiandu continent. Chu Fengmian had no interest in the continent, but he was not interested in the Tiandu continent, of course. Chu Fengmian of Tiandu continent. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't interested. His roots were in the 9 realms, and he would eventually return to them. There was already a Tiandu city gate. All martial artists and Fey immortals entering the celestial capital had to be checked before they were allowed to enter. Chu Fengmian observed for a moment and lost interest. He descended from the sky and flew directly to the city gate, ignoring the people lining up to enter the city. Ignoring the rules and directly entering the city? Someone dares to violate the strict rules of the Tiandu city? They don't know the difference between life and death. They will be kicked out in a while. Some of the warriors who were queuing to enter the city saw Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi flying directly to the city gate and started discussing. "Shut up if you don't want to die." Suddenly, an old man shouted angrily. He looked at Chu Fengmian with fear in his eyes. These two are quasi-emperors. How dare you talk about emperors? What? Quasi-emperors? Such young quasi-emperors? Hearing the old man's words, the warriors who were discussing were dumbfounded. They were terrified and did not dare to speak again. Quasi-emperors. Generally, even immortal realm Wushang old ancestors would not dare to violate the rules of the Tiandu city. After all, the Tiandu city was the most prosperous city in the Tiandu continent. Powerhouses were as common as clouds. Even Wushang old ancestors had to line up obediently and accept the inspection to enter the city. But a quasi-emperor was different. A quasi-emperor was already an emperor realm figure. Such a figure was a big shot in the Tiandu city. Even the soldiers guarding the city did not dare to stop them. They could enter the city without being inspected. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's escape light landed in front of the city gate. A few soldiers guarding the city had just approached when they suddenly sensed Chu Fengmian's aura. Their faces changed drastically. "Two emperors, please come in." Saying so, they did not stop Chu Fengmian at all and opened up a path. Chu Fengmian nodded and stepped into the Tiandu city with Luo Shi. Seeing Chu Fengmian enter the city directly without needing to line up, the warriors in the queue all showed looks of envy. This is a quasi-emperor. Once you step into the quasi-emperor realm, you will be an emperor realm master. You will have a high status and can start your own sect. One day, I will also become an emperor realm master. Forget it. It is enough to be an immortal realm Wushang old ancestor. You can go to a big sect and become an elder and get a large salary. Several young warriors were discussing among themselves. A quasi-emperor was already considered a figure in this grade 6 continent. The elders of many forces were also quasi-emperors. Chu Fengmian's realm showed that he was in the quasi-emperor realm, which was more convenient. At least in the Tiandu city, no one dared to stop Chu Fengmian.
Strolling in the Tiandu city, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi observed and noticed some differences between the Tiandu city and the ancient monster continent. The Tiandu continent did not belong to the sacred dragon mystery dimension, but belonged to the Avalon of 5 elements. Therefore, most of the warriors who cultivated the Tao of the 5 elements. The strongest person in the Tiandu continent was the Tiandu Emperor Gu, an 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu. His strength was not far from the Yan Emperor's. But now, the Yan Emperor had a shocking encounter. In addition to the primitive Emperor pill that Chu Fengmian had given him, it was enough for the Yan Emperor to step into the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu's level, leaving the Tiandu Emperor Gu far behind. As for the others, only the 7 Tribulations Emperor Gu were known as the 7 Great Families. There were also some disciples of the Avalon of 5 elements who cultivated in the Tiandu continent and had a high status. Where is the biggest chamber of commerce in the Tiandu city? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked the patrolling guard beside him. Emperor Realm Master, the guard was about to get angry when he was suddenly stopped, but when he saw Chu Fengmian's realm, his expression changed and he hurriedly said. Chapter 1464. At the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the center of Tiandu City. There was a tall building that was several hundred meters tall. The words Tiandu were written on a plaque. That should be where the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce was located. Thank you. Chu Fengmian moved his palm and a few milky white spirit stones flew toward the guard as a token of appreciation. After saying that, Chu Fengmian walked directly in the direction of the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Emperor-grade spirit stones. The guard took the spirit stones and was overjoyed. Emperor-grade spirit stones were extremely precious to him. He raised his head to look for Chu Fengmian's figure, but Chu Fengmian had completely disappeared. Flying was not allowed in Tiandu City. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi walked slowly in the direction of the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Before long, they reached the end of the street. The Tiandu Chamber of Commerce was at the end of the street. The Tiandu Chamber of Commerce was the core of the entire Tiandu City. It was enough to prove its status in Tiandu City. Sirs, please come in. Our Tiandu Chamber of Commerce has everything you need, no matter what kind of business it is. A young man from the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce saw Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi and hurriedly went up to them. This person was only at the Divine Power realm. He couldn't even tell Chu Fengmian's cultivation level. However, when he saw Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's temperament, he understood that these two were definitely powerhouses. I have a big business deal with your Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Ask your manager to come over. Chu Fengmian glanced at the young man. With a move of his palm, a few Emperor-grade spirit stones flew out. These are Emperor-grade spirit stones? The young man was stunned when he saw Chu Fengmian throw out Emperor-grade spirit stones. Such a large sum was very rare in the entire Tiandu continent. Please wait for a moment, sirs. I'll go and ask the supremacy to come over. The young man knew that honored guests had arrived. He put away the Emperor-grade spirit stones and hurried to the backstage. These Emperor-grade spirit stones were equivalent to the wealth he had earned in a few years. It was considered a huge windfall. In just a few minutes, the young man returned. At the same time, a middle-aged man followed behind him. This middle-aged man was an immortal realm supreme old ancestor. He was considered an expert in Tiandu City. Obviously, he was the person in charge of the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. 2 quasi-emperors? The middle-aged man was shocked when he saw Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's realms. In Sky Capital City, it was rare to see a quasi-emperor, let alone 2 at once. The businesses of quasi-emperors were all big businesses. The middle-aged man quickly reacted and said, My name is Rong Qing, a venerable from the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Venerable sovereigns, please come in. After saying that, Rong Qing made a gesture of invitation. Chu Fengmian nodded and walked in with Luo Shi. Ignoring the countless shocked gazes around them, they went straight upstairs. Who is this person? Let Venerable Rong Qing receive him personally. Look, even Venerable Rong Qing is so respectful. In the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce, other than the mysterious president, there are only a few venerables. Why are they so respectful to this person? Countless complicated gazes looked in Chu Fengmian's direction. There was jealousy, respect, and envy. Amidst these complicated gazes, Chu Fengmian went upstairs and arrived at the second floor. The second floor of the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce was like many other chambers of commerce. There were individual private rooms. Outsiders were not allowed to know about the transactions inside. It was extremely confidential. Rongqing led Chu Fengmian and Qin Haodong to an extremely spacious box before stopping for a while. The decoration of this private room was extremely luxurious at a glance. It was obviously used to receive distinguished guests. The Tiandu Chamber of Commerce did not do many quasi-emperors' businesses in a year. Seeing Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi arrive this time, Rongqing naturally received them well. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi sat down casually in the private room. With their current status, they were important figures even among the four major forces. Of course, there was nothing they were not used to. Rongqing also sat in front of Chu Fengmian and sealed the door of the private room. I wonder what business the two sovereigns have with our Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. I wonder if your Tiandu Chamber of Commerce has an exploration team heading to the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian did not keep them in suspense and asked directly. Generally, the exploration teams of the Daluo Star Field were established by chambers of commerce. They recruited other cultivators to head to the 9 regions and received a commission for the benefits. Chu Fengmian had come to the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce for this purpose. An exploration team heading to the 9 regions? Rongqing suddenly changed the topic when he heard this. The two sovereigns are not from our Tiandu continent, right? How so? Chu Fengmian raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Sovereigns, please don't misunderstand. It's like this. Our Tiandu Chamber of Commerce has indeed established an exploration team heading to the 9 regions. A few days ago, we had already informed the various major clans. The people have already been prepared. It's because of your inquiry that I find it a little strange. Rongqing smiled and said. Oh, the two of us are indeed not from the Tiandu continent. We are from the Yanzhou continent. Chu Fengmian nodded when he heard this. Since there is an exploration team, let the two of us join. We only need to head to the 9 regions. As for the reward, it's easy to discuss. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and thousands of spirit stones flew out from his palm. Saint-grade spirit stones? Rongqing's expression changed drastically when he saw the countless spirit stones that Chu Fengmian took out. He immediately stood up from his chair. Saint-grade spirit stones were extremely rare in the entire Daluo Star Field. They were of great use to many Emperor Gu. For example, among the sovereigns of the Daluo Star Field, elixirs from the 4 major forces were generally used as hard currency. However, Saint-grade spirit stones could also be used as hard currency, which was enough to prove their value. In particular, in the Tiandu continent, Saint-grade spirit stones had not appeared for decades. Occasionally, they would appear only a few. Now, Chu Fengmian had taken out thousands of Saint-grade spirit stones at once. Judging from Chu Fengmian's calm expression, it was obvious that he had more wealth. However, Rongqing frowned when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He seemed to be thinking about something. What? You think it's too little? Then your Tiandu Chamber of Commerce can name a price. Chu Fengmian looked at Rongqing's expression and said casually. He had plenty of Saint-grade spirit stones, so he didn't mind paying a little more. It's not like that. The two of you may not know this, but although our Tiandu Chamber of Commerce has established an exploration team to head to the 9 regions, we haven't been able to obtain the coordinates of the 9 regions. Therefore, we haven't set off after so many days. Rongqing hesitated for a moment before he spoke. Chapter 1465. News of the coordinates of the 9 territories had spread. However, it was only spread among the 4 great forces. As for the forces outside the 4 great forces, they might have heard about the 9 territories,
but they might not know where the coordinates of the 9 territories were. The starry sky was vast and boundless. If one didn't know the coordinates and searched randomly, they might not find it even after tens of thousands of years. Moreover, the endless stars were incomparably dangerous. Spatial storms would strike from time to time. Even the ancient emperor would find it hard to defend against some of them. For an emperor realm master, traversing the starry sky was an extremely dangerous task, and they needed to rely on external forces. For example, in the ancient monster continent, the disciples of the sacred dragon's secret domain had to rely on the jade talismans refined by the masters of the sacred dragon's secret domain to traverse the starry sky. If one wanted to traverse the starry sky with their physical body, they had to be at least an emperor realm master with 6 tribulation true emperor. It was also extremely dangerous. Therefore, the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce had formed the 9 territories exploration team long ago, but they hadn't set off yet because they hadn't found the specific coordinates of the 9 territories. The coordinates of the 9 territories. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered after hearing Rong Qing's words. No one knew the coordinates of the 9 territories better than Chu Fengmian. I can provide the coordinates of the 9 territories. Chu Fengmian suddenly said to Rong Qing. The coordinates of the 9 territories were no longer a secret in the Daluo star field. At least, almost everyone in the 4 great forces knew about it. However, the Tiandu continent was only a 6th-class continent after all, and there were relatively few masters there. If it were some 5th-class or 4th-class continents, it wouldn't be difficult for them to obtain the coordinates of the 9 territories. What? You have the coordinates of the 9 territories? Rong Qing stood up from his chair when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. His face was full of disbelief. The Tiandu Chamber of Commerce had spent a lot of effort but still couldn't obtain the coordinates of the 9 territories. Now, Chu Fengmian said he had it. Yes, the 2 of us have been following Emperor Yan and have heard about the 9 territories. That's why we want to go there. Chu Fengmian nodded and didn't want to say anything more. What if I can provide the coordinates of the 9 territories? Can the exploration team set off now? The exploration team can set off with the coordinates, but this matter is of great importance. Please wait. Rong Qing left the room in a hurry. The matter of the 9 regions' coordinates was a huge matter for the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. This was no longer something he could decide. Soon, Rong Qing came back with a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked very dignified. Even Rong Qing had to treat him with respect. A 6th tribulation true Emperor Chu Fengmian saw the middle-aged man's strength with a single glance. A 6th tribulation true emperor was considered an expert in celestial capital. After all, ancient emperors were the ancestors of the continent. Qi of the Emperor 9 territories. Emperor Qi Li of 9 territories. Of Emperor of the Sky of the 9 of them. How much are the 2 of you willing to pay? Oh? 1. Of them. Chu Fengmian sat on the chair and said casually. Join the exploration team? Go to the 9 territories? Ji Yan didn't expect Chu Fengmian to make such a request. He thought for a moment and said, we can accept this request. However, our expedition team can only send you to the 9 territories. We won't be responsible for anything after that. The 9 territories had countless treasures. But according to rumors, the 9 territories was also a very dangerous place. Experts from various factions would swarm into the 9 territories. The 9 territories were filled with all kinds of people. Even Emperor Gu might not be able to escape unscathed. The Tiandu Chamber of Commerce couldn't guarantee the safety of Chu Fengmian and Emperor Li. We just need to go to the 9 territories. The rest has nothing to do with the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fengmian said. How about it? These are the 9 territories' coordinates. I need to set off as soon as possible. Chu Fengmian flipped his palm and a jade talisman appeared. This jade talisman was a star chart. It recorded the route from the Tiandu continent to the 9 territories. Alright, but I heard that you 2 are warriors from the Yanzhou continent. The Yanzhou continent is very far away from the Tiandu continent. I wonder how you two came to the Tiandu continent. Ji Li's eyes suddenly flickered as he looked at Chu Fengmian with suspicion. Of course, I'm not doubting your identities. It's just that the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce's rules state that you have to verify your identity before joining the expedition team. Otherwise, I'm afraid there will be trouble on the way. Verification of identity? How about this? Chu Fengmian thought for a moment. Suddenly, a wooden token appeared in his hand. The words Emperor Yan were engraved on the wooden token. There was also a unique spiritual power added to it. This spiritual power could only be added by the Emperor Yan. This wooden token was given to Chu Fengmian by the Emperor Yan before he left. He said that if Chu Fengmian went to the Yanzhou continent, this wooden token would be enough to prove his identity. He didn't expect it to come in handy here. Emperor Yan's token? Ji Li was shocked when he saw the wooden token. I didn't expect the two of you to be so valued by the Emperor Yan. It seems that I was overthinking. Please take a rest. I'll inform the others. We'll set off for the 9 territories in 2 hours. Okay. Chu Fengmian nodded. Although he didn't know what the Emperor Yan's token was, it seemed that he had gotten away with it. Ji Li and Rong Qing retreated and left the two of them. They walked up to the 3rd floor. Vice President, don't we have to verify the identities of the members of the 9 territories expedition team? Why didn't you find out who the two of them are? Why did you let them join just like that? Rong Qing asked doubtfully. He had wanted to ask about Chu Fengmian's identity, but Ji Li had agreed. There's no need to ask. The two of them have the Emperor Yan's token. I'm afraid that even if they're not the Emperor's descendants, they're his most valued disciples. We don't have to provoke them. Ji Li reprimanded coldly. Are you confused? Don't you know about such a big thing recently? Are you talking about the Emperor Yan entering the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu? Chapter 1466. That's right. This matter has already spread throughout the Daluotian star field. Although the Yanzhou continent and our Tiandu continent are both 6th-grade continents, once Emperor Yan steps into the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, he will be a real big shot. Jian said coldly. Only the favored people of Emperor Yan or his most valued disciples are qualified to have the Emperor Yan's token. Looking at their cultivation, it's very likely that they are Emperor Yan's disciples. What's the point of provoking them? Since the coordinates of the 9 regions have been obtained, let's hurry and inform the others. We'll set off in 2 hours. Yes. Rong Qing hurriedly nodded and left to contact the other powerhouses. Emperor Yan has already stepped into the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian sat in the room. The entire Tiandu Chamber of Commerce was under the control of his spiritual sense. He heard the entire conversation between Jian and Rong Qing. There weren't many 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu in the 4 major forces. They were all old antiques and ancestors. Moreover, Emperor Yan had always been a lone wolf. Being able to step into the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu was indeed enough to cause a sensation. If the 4 major forces' attitude toward Emperor Yan when he was an 8 Tribulations Emperor Gu was to rope him in, then they were probably trying to curry favor with him now. With Emperor Yan around, even if Qing Meng hadn't stepped into the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, the Holy Dragon sect wouldn't have to worry for a short period of time. Chu Fengmian could also head to the 9 regions with peace of mind. 2 hours passed quickly. Vice President Jian pushed the door open and walked in. After seeing the Emperor Yan's token, Jian went to receive Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. The members of the other exploration teams have already gathered. Please follow me. Jian said and walked out of the door. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi followed closely behind. They left the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce and stepped into a transportation array. How should I address you, young master? Jian suddenly turned his head and asked Chu Fengmian. My surname is Chu. Chu Fengmian didn't say much to avoid exposing his identity. Chu Fengmian was no longer a nobody in the Daluotian star field. Ever since Chu Fengmian had joined the Holy Dragon sect, His name had been known by many people in the Daluotian star field. Of course, just the surname Chu wasn't a big deal. In the entire Daluo star field, there were at least tens of millions of people with the surname Chu. Young Master Chu, please. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was unwilling to say more, Jian smiled and didn't say anything. He stepped into the transportation array, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. As the world spun, Chu Fengmian sensed that he had arrived at another place in the Tiandu continent. It was a desert, and there were a few figures standing in the middle of it. These are the experts of our Tiandu mainland. These two are Gu Yan and Gu Hongfang from the Gu family. And Clan. 1 Li. Both of them were 6 tribulation true emperors. This is Yang Yuanbai. He's also from the celestial capital. He's an inner disciple of the Avalon of 5 elements. Jianyu pointed at a young man and said, Yang Yuanbai was a 5 tribulation true emperor despite his young age. He didn't hide the power of the 5 spirits from his body. His face was full of arrogance. Joining one of the 4 great powers in the celestial capital was a supreme honor. Chu Fengmian casually glanced at him. After all, he had killed plenty of supreme elders in the Avalon of 5 elements. A disciple wasn't worthy of his attention. As for this one, she's a disciple of the Blue Ocean capital. We didn't check her identity, but we know that she's a disciple from the Blue Ocean capital. Jian pointed at the last figure and said, it was a woman who looked incomparably mysterious. Her face was covered with a veil, making it impossible for others to see through her. This veil was definitely a spirit treasure. It might even be a heaven-grade spirit treasure. Chu Fengmian's vision was enough to see through everything. Even the 7 Tribulation Emperor Gu's trump cards could be seen with a single glance. There were no secrets in Chu Fengmian's eyes. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't see through the veil. Clearly, she had an extraordinary origin. The 9 Realms exploration team of the Tiandu Chamber of Commerce originally only had 4 people. Now that the 2 of you have joined, there's a total of 6. Jian smiled and said, Vice President Jian, we've been waiting for half a day. When are we leaving? What about the coordinates of the 9 realms? Why haven't you told us? While Jian and Chu Fengmian were talking, the figures in the distance also saw Chu Fengmian. Among them, Yang Yuanbai said impatiently, Young noble Yang, don't worry. We'll leave now. Jian hurriedly said. Although his cultivation realm was higher than Yang Yuanbai's, he didn't dare to reprimand Yang Yuanbai. After all, Yang Yuanbai was a disciple of the 4 major forces. With the status of the 4 major forces, there was a great chance that they could step into the ranks of Emperor Gu. Therefore, he couldn't offend them. As for the coordinates of the 9 realms, this is young noble Chu. He knows the coordinates of the 9 realms. This time, young noble Chu and his companion will follow the exploration team to the 9 realms. Jian introduced to Chu Fengmian. What? Someone else is joining? Hearing Jian's words, Yang Yuanbai glanced at Chu Fengmian and his companion. He sized up Chu Fengmian's cultivation realm and said disdainfully, 2 quasi-emperors? Why would they join us? Are they dragging us down? The 9 realms are a dangerous place. What's the point of bringing 2 burdens? Moreover, the journey is dangerous. We can't bring unknown people. Vice President Jian, I think it's fine to bring them along. Just ask them to hand over the coordinates of the 9 realms. At most, I'll pay them. Young noble Chu and his companion are both from the Yanzhou continent. Our exploration team has already checked their identities. Young noble Yang, you can rest assured. Jian hurriedly said when he heard Yang Yuanbai's words. Yanzhou continent? And here I was wondering where they came from. What qualifications does a mere quasi-emperor from a level 6 continent have to follow us to the 9 realms? Hearing Jian's words, Yang Yuanbai was even more impatient. This time, he looked directly at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, Young noble Chu, be sensible and hand over the coordinates of the 9 realms. What do you want in return? Spiritual weapons? Elixirs? I'll give it to you. Yang Yuanbai stared at Chu Fengmian with disdain in his eyes. Chapter 1467. Apart from Chu Fengmian and Luo Yan, Yang Yuanbai, the two from the Gu clan, and the mysterious woman were all at least 5 tribulation true emperors. Only Chu Fengmian and Luo Yan were at the quasi-emperor realm. There was indeed a gap between their realms. After all, the difference between true emperors was like heaven and earth. The core disciples of the 4 great powers could easily surpass the gap between realms. However, for the majority of true emperors, the gap between realms was the difference in strength. Moreover, Chu Fengmian and Luo Yan were only at the quasi-emperor realm. Yang Yuanbai looked down on them from the bottom of his heart. Young noble Yang, hearing this, Jian's face revealed a somewhat awkward expression. He knew that Chu Fengmian wanted Luo Shi and Chu Fengmian to follow the expedition to the 9 realms. He didn't expect to encounter such a great resistance. Brat, I'm talking to you, are you deaf? Hand over the coordinates of the 9 realms and I'll give you half of the treasures I get there. How about it? Yang Yuanbai stared at Chu Fengmian and said coldly as if he was giving alms. The coordinates of the 9 realms are not for sale. Chu Fengmian said indifferently, ignoring Yang Yuanbai's words. Brat, it seems like you won't give me face? Yang Yuanbai sneered and looked at Chu Fengmian. A mere quasi-emperor dares to not give me face? Not for sale? Then it's for free? If that's the case, then hand it over. Boom! A wave of spirit energy emitted from Yang Yuanbai's body. His right hand made a grabbing motion and aimed at Chu Fengmian's throat. 5 elemental spirit energy immediately exuded from Yang Yuanbai's body. His fingers turned into 5 elemental lights and bombarded Chu Fengmian. It was an absolute killing move. Young noble Yang, please stop. Jian was shocked to see this scene. He knew that Chu Fengmian had the Yen King's token and was most likely the Yen King's most valued disciple. If he died here today, it would be difficult to explain. Jian, you dare to interfere in my business? Yang Yuanbai's expression turned cold as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Brat, since you don't intend to hand over the coordinates of the 9 zones, then you can die. I'll kill you and refine your soul. Let's see if you can still be so stubborn. 5 rays of light bombarded Chu Fengmian. A disciple of the Avalon of 5 elements? What was a mere inner disciple to him? Do you think you're Emperor Gu? Chu Fengmian looked at the approaching 5 rays of light. Not only did he not retreat, he even revealed a disdainful smile. Destroy. Boom! A powerful aura burst out from Chu Fengmian's back. As soon as this aura was released, the surrounding spiritual energy was completely destroyed. The moment the 5 rays of light approached Chu Fengmian, they were all destroyed. Not a single ray could get close to Chu Fengmian's body. Yen Emperor's Jade Cannon? The other true emperors were surprised to see Chu Fengmian's aura. This is the Yen Emperor's ultimate skill. It is said that even among the Yen Emperor's disciples, there are very few who can learn this Yen Emperor's Jade Scripture. This person is only a quasi-emperor, how can he learn it? It seems that this person is most likely a disciple highly regarded by the Yen Emperor. No wonder he's not afraid of Yang Yuanbai. They talked for a while and found that Chu Fengmian wasn't as simple as they thought. Now, Chu Fengmian easily dispelled Yang Yuanbai's attack. With your strength, you dare to boast like this? Chu Fengmian looked at Yang Yuanbai with disdain. Little animal. Yang Yuanbai saw Chu Fengmian's expression and became extremely angry. He erupted with spiritual energy and the power of the 5 elements crazily condensed behind him. He wanted to use an even more powerful move to kill Chu Fengmian. Stop! At this moment, an ice wall suddenly appeared between Chu Fengmian and Yang Yuanbai. The woman surnamed Lan suddenly took action. Seeing her take action, Jian breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly came forward. Young Master Yang, young Master Chu, let's not fight here. We still have to work together in the future. Young Master Yang, you've seen young Master Chu's strength now. It shouldn't be a problem for him to join the exploration team. Jian was also amazed by Chu Fengmian's strength. It wasn't easy for a quasi-emperor to dispel Yang Yuanbai's attack. After all, the difference in realm was too great. But now, Chu Fengmian took action and looked very relaxed. It was obvious that Chu Fengmian's strength wasn't limited to this. It wouldn't be good for anyone to continue fighting. Humph! Yang Yuanbai snorted coldly and slowly withdrew his spiritual energy. Indeed, his purpose was to go to the 9 regions to collect treasures. The current Chu Fengmian was no longer an ant that could be easily crushed in his eyes. Even if he wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, he would need to consume a lot of spiritual energy. The loss outweighed the gain. Boy, I'll remember you. I'll come and compete with you in the future. Yang Yuanbai said to Chu Fengmian and turned his head, ignoring Chu Fengmian. The other 2 from the Gu clan and the girl surnamed Lan no longer looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain. Although they didn't think that Chu Fengmian's true strength was comparable to Yang Yuanbai, he wasn't a weakling since he could exchange a few blows with Yang Yuanbai. After all, Chu Fengmian only wanted to form a team with them, not to split the treasures. Thus, it wasn't hard to accept. If there's no objection, then we can go now. The girl surnamed Lan calmly said. Let's go. The 2 people from the Gu clan also nodded their heads. The old man from the Gu clan, Gu Yan, moved his hand and an empty ring appeared in his palm. He poured his spiritual energy into it and opened it to reveal a 100-meter-long arc. Crossing the stars was an extremely dangerous matter for a 6th tribulation true emperor. It was fine if the journey was short, but if it was longer, then even Emperor Gu would be in danger. After all, there were many secrets and dangers in space that were impossible to guard against. An ark was enough to make it much safer. This ark was at least a heaven-level spirit treasure. It seemed like the 2 from the Gu clan were well prepared. The 2 from the Gu family took the lead and stepped onto the ark. Activating their spiritual energy, the arrays that were engraved on the ark were immediately activated. Yang Yuanbai also looked at Chu Fengmian with hatred in his eyes. Then, he also stepped onto the ark. Chapter 1468. The ark left the celestial capital continent and traveled through space. The 2 true emperors of the Gu clan were in charge of controlling the ark. As for Chu Fengmian and the rest, they were meditating inside. Chu Fengmian had carved the location of the 9 regions on a jade talisman and handed it to the 2 true emperors of the Gu clan. Then, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi meditated inside the ark. Chu Fengmian sat on the edge of the ark with his eyes closed. He seemed to be cultivating, but his eyes were actually sizing up the people present. Brother Chu is quite strong. You must be a disciple of the Yan Emperor, right? He even passed down the Yan Emperor's jade scripture to you. A young man walked to Chu Fengmian's side. It was the younger of the 2 true emperors of the Gu clan, Gu Hongfang. He immediately came to strike up a conversation with Chu Fengmian. With Brother Chu's strength, you shouldn't be a nobody in the Daluo star field. You should be able to rank in the top 100 of the Daluo genius ranking. Gu Hongfang said with a smile. But I've never heard of you before. I've been cultivating in seclusion with my master all year round. This is the first time I've come out to experience the world. I'm heading to the 9 regions to find some treasures so that I can break through to the Emperor realm. Chu Fengmian said indifferently. His face also revealed a somewhat dull feeling. He indeed looked like a warrior who had not experienced much of the world and had just started cultivating. Only cultivators who had shown their strength were qualified to be on the Daluo genius ranking. For example, in the Holy Land of the Holy Dragon Secret Realm, there were many saint children who could enter the top 10 or at least the top 100. However, they weren't on the ranking because most of them were cultivating in the Holy Land and the outside world didn't know about them. The Holy Dragon Secret Realm was the same as the other forces in the Daluo star field. There were many hidden geniuses, and many of them were able to rank among the top the first time they entered the ranking.
Now that Chu Fengmian had the Yan Emperor's Jade Scripture as a cover, no one could question his identity. He could say whatever he wanted. The Yan Emperor has recently stepped into the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. As the Yan Emperor's disciple, Brother Chu will have a meteoric rise. We will have to rely on you in the future. Gu Hongfang's attitude was very polite. He chatted with Chu Fengmian for a while before leaving with a smile. Something's off. Luo Shi, who was beside Chu Fengmian, waited until Gu Hongfang left before she suddenly transmitted her voice to Chu Fengmian. She didn't say anything, but she was observing Gu Hongfang, who was conversing with Chu Fengmian. The two emperors from the Gu clan looked no different from ordinary people. However, Luo Shi was an 8 Tribulation ancient emperor. She could see through everything. He could tell that there was something strange about these two emperors. There was an indescribable power inside them. This was definitely not the power of a human warrior. It's not a warrior. It should be a demon. Chu Fengmian glanced at the two emperors and said coldly. Luo Shi didn't recognize the power of the two emperors, but Chu Fengmian recognized it as the power of the devil race. After all, Chu Fengmian had gone to the Nether Ghost Realm and killed a lot of demons. Chu Fengmian even had a heart demon king at the level of Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian couldn't be more familiar with the aura of the devil race. Interesting. There are actually demons that have infiltrated the cultivators. They want to go to the 9 realms as well? Chu Fengmian saw through the identities of these two people, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. The enmity between the demon race and human martial artists had always been irreconcilable. For example, when the disciples of the 4 major factions went to the ancient demon domain to slay the demon race during their assessment. Similarly, after a period of time, a large number of demons would also attack the various continents, slaughtering the martial artists and demon immortals, devouring their flesh and blood to obtain power. For example, these two emperors from the Gu clan were devils. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could see that they were at least at the Emperor Gu level. Chu Fengmian was a little surprised that these two ancient emperor-level demons had joined the martial artists and even infiltrated the 9 regions exploration team. He didn't know what these two were up to. Should we kill them? Luo Shi's eyes flashed with ferocity. She couldn't be merciful against the devils. The only way was to kill them. Wait, I don't think they're here for us. They're on this ark. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he sized up the people on the ark. Apart from Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi, there was only Yang Yuanbai and the mysterious woman surnamed Lan. Chu Fengmian had fought with Yang Yuanbai before. Yang Yuanbai was an ordinary inner disciple of the Avalon of 5 elements and wasn't considered a big shot. He definitely wasn't worthy of 2 Emperor Gu-level demons to deal with them. In that case, if the target of those 2 people was not Chu Fengmian and Chu Feng, then the only possibility was that woman surnamed Lan. This woman with the surname Lan was extremely mysterious. Even Chu Fengmian couldn't tell where she was from. It seemed like these 2 ancient emperor-level demons were here for her. Wu Ji, do you want to make a move now? No, this is the territory of the Avalon of 5 elements. If we make a move here, we'll alert them. Let's wait until we're near the 9 domains. Black Sky Devil Emperor has already gone to the 9 domains and occupied an area. Once we're near the 9 domains, we can ask Black Sky Devil Emperor to come and receive us. Wu Shi, don't test that kid anymore. He's a dead man anyway. Once we're in the 9 domains, we'll bring back that woman and present her to the young emperor. As for the rest, we'll kill them all. Chu Fengmian quietly activated his spiritual consciousness and secretly eavesdropped on the conversation between the 2 Emperor Gu's devils. Chu Fengmian heard all of their conversation. These 2 devils of the Emperor Gu were called Wu Ji and Wu Shi. They seemed to be from the same family. In the devil race, bloodline was more important. A powerful devil bloodline would give birth to an incomparably powerful devil. Therefore, each and every big family was like a power in the devil race. The Raven tribe was one of the big families in the devil race. The devil race has already infiltrated the 9 domains? This is troublesome. Furthermore, it's a demon emperor.
After listening to their conversation, Chu Fengmian's eyes became hazy. During the Dark Age of the Nine Domains, the Six Paths Demon sect had ruled over the Nine Domains. It was said that the Six Paths Demon sect had the support of countless powerful devils, making them invincible. Chapter 1469. In that era, the demons that went to the Nine Territories were just a branch of a family. Therefore, they were destroyed by the combined forces of the Nine Territories. For tens of thousands of years, the demons never appeared in the Nine Territories again. However, it was different this time. The coordinates of the Nine Territories were exposed. Just the demons of the Nether Ghost Realm alone were enough to cause great suffering in the Nine Territories, let alone outside the Daluotian star field. Some powerful demons even occupied a star field. If all of them came, it would be unimaginable. Who is this girl? The two ancient emperors of the demon race are really here for her, and even mention the young empress? Chu Fengmian looked at the mysterious woman surnamed Lan with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Chu Fengmian was only guessing, but after hearing the conversation between the two Emperor Gu of the demon race, Chu Fengmian confirmed it. The two Emperor Gu of the demon race did not come for Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's arrival was just an accident. Their target had always been the mysterious woman surnamed Lan. And it sounded like the young emperor had given the order. The young emperor had a high status in the demon race of the Nether Ghost Realm. After Chu Fengmian returned to the Sacred Dragon Secret Realm, he did some research on the young emperor. After all, Chu Fengmian had snatched the 10 heavenly demon skeletons from the young emperor. It was also because Chu Fengmian had cultivated a half-step immortal real body. Because of this, Chu Fengmian and the young emperor had formed an irreconcilable enmity. The young emperor's status in the Nether Ghost Realm was almost the same as Yun Zun's in the Daluotian star field. He was the number one person of the younger generation, an invincible existence. It was said that the young emperor had reached the half-step celestial realm. Previously, in the Nether Ghost Realm, the young emperor's clone formed by a wisp of spiritual power was enough to kill several Emperor Gu. If not for the fact that the young emperor's power was almost exhausted when he was chasing after Chu Fengmian would not have escaped death. The woman surnamed Lan must be hiding a big secret since she was able to make an expert half a step into the celestial being realm so concerned. Therefore, Chu Fengmian did not plan to deal with the two Emperor Gu. Instead, he waited for them to attack and see what was going on. Time passed little by little. The two ancient emperors of the demon race did not come to talk to Chu Fengmian again. They had never taken Chu Fengmian and Luo Yunyan seriously. From their point of view, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi were already dead, so they didn't care. As for the woman with the surname Lan, she had been cultivating in a corner. Even Chu Fengmian could not see through her cultivation technique. Although Luo Yang, Luo of the Luo of Chu Fengmian knew the Yan Emperor's Jade Cannon because he'd seen the Yan Emperor use it when he'd joined forces with him in the 9 mystic immortal sovereigns' abode. Now, Chu Fengmian could easily use it, but its power was less than 30% of the real Yan Emperor's. Still, it was enough to bluff his way through. However, Chu Fengmian could not see through Lan Fengmian's cultivation method. This was enough to prove how mysterious it was. A week passed quickly. The Tiandu continent was about a week's journey from the 9 realms. During this week, Chu Fengmian spent all his time observing the situation of the two Emperor Gu and cultivating in seclusion. This period of time was the last chance for him to properly cultivate. Once he reached the 9 realms, there would be no more peaceful days. When he'd fought Little Emperor Yi, Chu Fengmian had used the 4th move of the 9 mystic sword art, Heavenly Secrets. It was this move that had forced Little Emperor Yi to retreat, but he'd managed to escape unscathed. Even Chu Fengmian hadn't fully comprehended the profundity of this move. After his battle with Little Emperor Yi, Chu Fengmian had been constantly trying to comprehend it. In the past week, Chu Fengmian had been trying to comprehend this sword. If Chu Fengmian were to fight Little Emperor Yi again, he had at least a 30% chance of killing him on the spot without giving him a chance to escape. The 9 realms, we're almost there. Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes and looked at the star chart and the jade talisman. They were now incomparably close to the 9 realms. Luo Shi, the woman with the surname Lan, and the others slowly opened their eyes and looked out of the ark. What entered their eyes was an incomparably large continent. However, this continent was obscured by dense fog. It was impossible to see what was going on inside from the outside. All they could see was a large expanse of fog. Amidst the thick fog, one could vaguely see balls of fire. This is the 9 realms? Chu Fengmian was from the 9 realms, but this was his first time seeing the 9 realms. The last time Chu Fengmian had left the 9 realms, he'd coincidentally opened a spatial rift and drifted through the spatial current to the ancient monster continent. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had seen the 9 realms in the outside world. It was just as the rumors said. The 9-fold skyfire hovered above the 9 realms. This 9-fold skyfire had once been the umbrella that protected the 9 realms from invasion. However, later on, the 9-fold skyfire had also become a cage for the 9 realms. For tens of thousands of years, almost no powerhouse had been able to break out of the 9-fold skyfire and leave the 9 realms. This is the 9 realms? What a small continent. The 9 realms, which used to be one of the 4 sacred realms, is only this big? No, the 9 realms used to be tens of thousands of times bigger than this. However, in a catastrophe, the 9 realms were destroyed and only this big is left. However, don't underestimate the 9 realms. There are treasures everywhere in the 9 realms, and there are also countless small realms left behind. The woman surnamed Lan, the 2 demon emperor Gu, Luo Shi, and the others all exclaimed. For them, this was their first time seeing the 9 realms in its entirety. Seeing the 9 realms, which used to be one of the 4 sacred realms, right before their eyes, everyone's eyes revealed undisguised greed. Treasures. Many powerhouses had come to the 9 realms only for treasures. They had come for treasures. Chu Fengmian didn't pay attention to these people's conversations. His gaze was fixed on the 9 realms. The power of the 9-fold skyfire? Has it become smaller? Chu Fengmian observed the 9-fold skyfire above the 9 realms, and his eyes revealed some indelible surprise. 9-fold skyfire. In the countless ancient records of the 9 realms, it was an extremely terrifying existence. Chapter 1470. Becoming an immortal was the celestial realm in the Daluo star field. Stepping into the celestial realm was also known as ascending to immortality, stepping into the immortal realm and surpassing mortals. According to the ancient records, only celestials had the ability to break through the 9-fold heavenly flame. Therefore, for thousands of years, only the celestial sovereigns left the 9 domains and went to the outer space. The other true emperors and Emperor Gu couldn't leave the 9 domains. But now, the 9-fold heavenly flame had weakened. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that even Emperor Gu couldn't resist the 9-fold heavenly flame. Even some powerful 6 tribulation true emperors and quasi-emperors with external help could break through the 9-fold heavenly flame and enter the 9 domains. It seemed that something big had happened in the 9 domains while Chu Fengmian wasn't in the 9 domains. Everyone, we're going to break through the 9-fold heavenly flame and enter the 9 domains. One of the true emperors of the Gu clan, Gu Hongfang, who was also Emperor Gu of the Devil race, shouted loudly. He began to control the ark and flew towards the 9 domains, passing through the 9-fold heavenly flame. Lady Lan and Yang Yuanbai looked solemn. Obviously, they had heard of the power of the 9-fold heavenly flame and didn't dare to underestimate it. They began to condense their spiritual energy and formed a barrier on the ark to resist the 9-fold heavenly flame. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi also injected their spiritual energy and didn't show any difference from the others. After the formation of the spiritual energy barrier was completed, the ark flew towards the 9 domains. Countless heavenly flames burned the ark, but they were all neutralized by the spiritual energy barrier on the ark. After passing through the layers of heavenly flames, the ninefold heavenly flame finally disappeared. The fog that covered the 9 domains also disappeared and was replaced by the full view of the 9 domains. The 9 domains and the 4 seas were all reflected in Chu Fengmian's eyes. We're back to the 9 domains. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi were excited. After all, the two of them grew up in the 9 domains and had a special feeling for the 9 domains. Even though the two of them were Xingzi in the Sacred Dragon Secret Dimension and had an extremely high status, they were still most focused on returning to the 9 regions. The place we are heading to is the Yan region, one of the 9 regions. An elder from our Gu clan has already established a faction there. We can meet up with them first. Demon Emperor Gu Wuji, who had turned into Gu Hongfang, shouted loudly. He commanded the ark to fly directly in the direction of the Flame Domain. The 9 domains doesn't seem to have changed much, but there are undercurrents. I'm afraid that many of the forces have been infiltrated and controlled by other experts. Chu Fengmian looked at the 9 regions with a calm expression. However, he knew very well that all of this was just on the surface. So many powerhouses had no intention of making a move before they figured out the actual situation of the 9 zones. However, once they understood the situation of the 9 regions, it would be time for them to make their move. Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi hadn't returned too late. They had managed to return before they made their move. Han Yueli had returned earlier than Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi. When Chu Fengmian had returned to the 9 regions, she had also sensed Han Yueli's aura. This direction was indeed in the north region, Wuxing Nation. It seemed like they had returned to the cold snow pavilion. Chu Fengmian had followed the 2 Demon Emperor Gu and hadn't left yet. He wanted to see what the demon clan was up to. The 9 regions weren't large. Given the ark's flying speed, they soon arrived in the Yan region. They landed in a sect. This sect was called the Thunderfire sect. It was a second-rate faction in the Yan region. Chu Fengmian had only heard of it before. The ark landed in the Thunderfire sect. Immediately, countless streaks of light flew over. A martialist wearing the Thunderfire sect's disciple robes walked out. In the center of this group of Thunderfire sect disciples stood a few elders. Among them was a middle-aged man who was extremely handsome and tall. He exuded Emperor Gu's aura. Emperor Gu. This is an expert from the Gu family? An Emperor Gu? Yang Yuanbai was extremely shocked when he saw the middle-aged man. As for Chu Fengmian, Han Yueli, and the lady in blue, they didn't think much of it. However, they still pretended to be shocked. At the same time, Chu Fengmian could tell that the middle-aged man before him was also a demon. He was an 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu. He should be the Black Sky Demon Emperor that the two of them had mentioned. As for the other Thunderfire sect disciples, Chu Fengmian's heart sank when he saw them. These Thunderfire sect disciples, without exception, were all from the demon race. They were all demons in disguise. It seemed like this group of demons knew a type of disguise technique that allowed them to disguise themselves as martialists. Apart from Chu Fengmian, who possessed the Heart Demon King, which made him extremely sensitive to the aura of demons, even an 8th Tribulation Emperor Gu like Luo Shi wouldn't be able to tell the true identity of this group of people. A large group of demons had occupied the Thunderfire sect. Now, the Thunderfire sect had become a nest of the demons. It was likely that the original disciples and elders of the Thunderfire sect had died in the hands of this group of demons. Now, the 9 regions had been infiltrated without anyone noticing. If the demons could infiltrate, then what about the experts of the 4 major forces? What about the experts of the Daluo star field? Chu Fengmian didn't dare to imagine how many experts had infiltrated the 9 regions. Greetings, my lord. The 2 ancient emperors of the demon race, who had turned into Gu Yan and Gu Hongfang, lowered their heads respectfully when they saw the middle-aged man. The difference in strength between the demons was the difference in status. When facing an expert, they had to be respectful. You guys have done well. The Black Sky Demon Emperor glanced around. When he saw the woman with the surname Lan, a hint of greed flashed in his eyes. The woman with the surname Lan couldn't help but frown when she noticed it. Since we have already arrived in the 9 regions, then the exploration team will be dismissed. I have friends in the 9 regions, so I will take my leave first. The woman with the surname Lan sensed that something was wrong. After she finished speaking, she turned into a streak of light and intended to leave. But at this moment, the spiritual energy in the sky suddenly condensed and turned into a large ray. Everyone was sealed inside, and no one was able to break out. Miss Lan, you don't have to be in a hurry to leave. My young master still wants to meet you. This is an order from my young master, so I can only obey. Don't resist, the Black Sky Demon Emperor said as he looked at the woman with the surname Lan. Chapter 1471. Yes. The 2 Emperor Gu of the Devil race who had turned into true emperors of the Gu clan laughed ferociously. Woo 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 woo. Immediately, ghostly wails and howls resounded in the Thunder Fire sect. Demonic intent filled the sky and enveloped the entire Thunder Fire sect. How is this a sect of the 9 zones? This was practically a den of demons. The disciples of the Thunder Fire sect burst out laughing as well. Suddenly, their bodies began to morph into figures of the demon race. Azura. Yiksha. Fiery Devil. Seeing the disciples of the Thunder Fire sect turn into devils, Lady Lan's face turned gloomy to the extreme. At the same time, the 2 true emperors of the Gu clan also turned into Yiksha kings with the strength of 7 tribulations Emperor Gu. Are you from the devil race? The woman surnamed Lan said coldly. This is the Daluo star domain. How dare you act so presumptuously? Ha ha, so what if this is the Daluo star domain? We, the devil race, have never been afraid of anything. The Black Sky Devil Emperor laughed out loud. Princess of the Sea, you don't have to waste any more time. No one can save you today. The ancient emperor of the demon race called Wu Qi stared at the woman with the surname Lan with a sinister smile. Princess of the Sea? Hearing this name, Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he looked at Lady Lan. Chu Fengmian had heard of this name before. Even though Chu Fengmian had never met the Princess of the Sea in Skyhorn City, they had competed for her at the auction house. This Lady Lan in front of him was the Princess of the Sea from Blue Ocean Capital? No wonder so many experts from the devil race were involved. This Lady Lan's background was indeed extraordinary. The Princess of the Sea was one of the most famous geniuses in Blue Ocean Capital. Her strength was at the peak of 6 tribulations true emperor when she was a quasi-emperor. Now, the Princess of the Sea seemed to have had a fortuitous encounter. Although she was still a quasi-emperor, her strength was comparable to Emperor Gu. Even among the saints in the Holy Dragon Secret Dimension, such talent was considered extremely high. The few of you should be dead by now since you know our secret. However, I will give you a chance today. Kneel down and become our slaves. After we conquer the 9 regions, you will be rewarded handsomely. Now, kneel down and submit, and drink the demonic blood. The Black Sky Devil Emperor sneered at Yang Yuanbai, Chu Fengmian, and the others. It's your honor to submit to us, the great demon race, you little fellows. Kneel down and submit. If you don't submit, then die. Wu Ji and Wu Shi both took a step forward, their faces ferocious. As long as the order was given, they would kill. Submit to the demons? Dream on. The Princess of the Sea's face was extremely gloomy. Just as she was about to unleash her spiritual energy, the 2 demons from Emperor Gu were even faster. A wave of demonic intent instantly enveloped the Princess of the Sea, causing her spiritual energy to dissipate. I submit, I'm willing to submit. Yang Yuanbai's expression changed when he saw this. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Oh? Not bad, there's still a smart person. Kid, drink the demonic blood. From now on, you will be the servant of our noble demon race. Enjoy the glory of the demon race. The Black Sky Devil Emperor laughed. He pointed his palm and a drop of demonic blood flew into Yang Yuanbai's mouth.
Yang Yuanbai's body began to explode crazily. Black scales grew out from his body, turning him into a half-human, half-demon existence. After completely transforming into a demonic being, Yang Yuanbai looked at the Black Sky Demon Emperor with respect in his eyes. The power that came from the bloodline made it so that he had no choice but to submit. What about the two of you? Do you choose to submit or die? The Black Sky Devil Emperor stared at Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi and sneered. Master, these two are stubborn. They aren't worthy of a chance. Just kill them. Yang Yuanbai stared at Chu Fengmian with incomparable hatred. Master, please let me capture these two personally. I want to torture them. Okay, you go. The Black Sky Devil Emperor looked at Yang Yuanbai with interest and said with a smile. Yes. Yang Yuanbai stepped forward, looked at Chu Fengmian with a ferocious face, and laughed. Kid, you didn't expect that you would fall into my hands today, right? Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. I will torture you and play with your woman in front of you. I'll let you watch carefully. As Yang Yuanbai spoke, a demonic intent condensed in his palm and turned into a demonic claw that grabbed at Chu Fengmian. Just an ant, how dare you be so arrogant? Luo Shi, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, had a change in expression. She couldn't hold back the killing intent in her heart and immediately attacked. A five-colored light burst out from her palm. The moment the five-colored light swept past, the devil that was looking at Yuanbai was instantly cut down. His body fell into the five-colored light and was destroyed layer by layer. What? Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu? The Black Sky Devil Emperor, Wu Ji, and Wu Shi felt the aura on Luo Shi's body at the same time, and their expressions changed. They had thought that Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi were just two ants who had sneaked in and weren't worth mentioning. However, when the Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu's cultivation realm was revealed, their expressions changed drastically. So what if you're the Eighth Tribulation Emperor Gu? You'll definitely die if you fall into the hands of the demon race alone. I've already guessed that someone would come to save the Princess of the Sea, so I've already set up a great array to capture you and give you to the young emperor. The young emperor will be even happier. The Black Sky Emperor Gu looked at Luo Shi and his expression changed drastically. He said viciously, "Attack, capture this woman. Give her to the young emperor and the young emperor will reward you handsomely." Yes. Wu Ji, Wu Shi, and the rest of the demon race attacked at the same time. The Thunder Fire sect had been transformed into a demon realm. Demonic intent was everywhere, and it was enough for the demon race to unleash their full strength. The demon race danced wildly and attacked Luo Shi. A bunch of puny demon race dares to be so presumptuous in the 9 regions? You want to conquer the 9 regions? You're courting death. All of you, die. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. The king of the inner demons suddenly appeared behind him. These demon race members were the elites of the demon race. They were far from the demon race at the edge of the Nether Ghost region. The demon race's bloodline was the best nourishment for the king of the inner demons. Chapter 1472. The king of the inner demons was no weaker than a peak 7 Tribulation Emperor Gu. Dealing with a group of true emperors was no different from a massacre. He rushed in like a wolf in a flock of sheep, slaughtering the devils one by one. Luo Shi charged towards Wu Ji and Wu Shi. With her 8 Tribulation Ancient Emperor cultivation realm, she was able to suppress the 2 ancient emperors of the devil race in an instant. 5-colored light flashed continuously. Who are you? Who are you? The king of the inner demons? This is the legendary king of the inner demons, a supreme existence in the devil race. How can he be controlled by someone else? Wu Tian stared at Chu Fengmian and roared. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, especially after seeing the king of the inner demons. The king of the inner demons was a supreme existence even in the devil race. How could he be subdued by Chu Fengmian? He thought that he had the upper hand and could capture the Princess of the Sea and Chu Fengmian's group in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that things would turn out this way?
The young emperor should know who I am better than you. However, you won't have the chance to ask him today. Those who dare to step into the 9 realms will all die today. Chu Fengmian didn't want to waste time talking and unleashed his full power. The power of the war dragon enveloped his body. The war dragon bloodline was the bane of the dragon race. Wu Tian was a big shot in the devil race with a noble bloodline. Ordinary dragon bloodlines wouldn't be able to suppress him. Even the war dragon bloodline wouldn't be able to do so. However, Chu Fengmian's bloodline contained the essence blood of progenitor Jianwang. Even the 10 sky demons of the demon race were inferior to the ancestral sky dragon. When the power of the bloodline was fully unleashed, the strength of the Black Sky Demon Emperor was suppressed by 30%. Die! Chu Fengmian's spirit force condensed in his palm, and the dragons roared. He unleashed the first move of the ancestor's art. Rumble! Not only the Black Sky Demon Emperor, but the countless demons around him were also targeted by Chu Fengmian. They were all killed on the spot by this palm strike. The king of the inner demons continued to devour the essence blood of the devils, causing his strength to rise steadily. You're the brat who stole the bronze heavenly demon skeleton. Black Sky Devil Emperor glared at Chu Fengmian and suddenly shouted. He remembered Chu Fengmian's identity. However, the Black Sky Demon Emperor was even more shocked when he recognized Chu Fengmian's identity. He remembered that the person who had snatched the bronze heavenly demon skeleton from the young emperor was merely an immoral realm brat. In the eyes of the ancient emperors, Wu wasn't even an ant. However, in just a few months, Chu Fengmian's current strength had already reached such a level. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. It seemed that the news of the young emperor's bronze heavenly demon skeleton being stolen had spread throughout the devil race. Once the devil race found out about Chu Fengmian's identity, he would be hunted down by countless devils. Especially since Chu Fengmian had cultivated the half-step immortal real body with the help of the bronze heavenly demon skeleton. This was extremely attractive to the countless demon clans. Die! Chu Fengmian turned his palm. Looking at Wu Tian, who was still gathering his demonic will, he unleashed another palm strike. Endless spiritual energy gathered and turned into a huge dragon claw. The second form of the primordial ancestor was executed and shrouded the Black Sky Demon Emperor. Puff! The demonic intent that had gathered around the Black Sky Demon Emperor's body was instantly shattered. The power of the primogenitor's second move struck the Black Sky Demon Emperor's body and shattered it. The devil race shall not perish. Reconstruct the golden body. The flesh and blood of Wu Tian Demon Emperor was still roaring in the air. He was still trying to gather his flesh and blood. However, Chu Fengmian would not give him the chance. The battle dragon claw formed above Chu Fengmian's head and swept across. The flesh and blood that was trying to gather was scattered into a cloud of blood mist. At the same time, Chu Fengmian summoned the King of Inner Demons. The King of Inner Demons dashed forward and grabbed the flesh and blood of Wu Tian Demon Emperor and devoured it. The King of Inner Demons did not let go of the essence blood of the devil race in the air. Boom! After devouring so much essence blood of the devil race, the King of Inner Demons' power seemed to have reached its peak. His body began to expand. At the same time, the King of Inner Demons devoured countless demonic wills. At this moment, the King of Inner Demons began to level up. Demons danced wildly around the Heart Demon King. However, the Heart Demon King was like an ancient demon emperor that commanded all demons in all directions. Before him, all demons bowed their heads and submitted to him. The power of the King of Inner Demons rose steadily. It was 7 to 8 times more terrifying than before and was still rising. The increase in power finally stopped when it reached 10 times. The King of Inner Demons had stepped into the realm of 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. Great, the King of Inner Demons has stepped into the realm of 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. I have another helper. Chu Fengmian was delighted and recalled the King of Inner Demons back into his body. Originally, Chu Fengmian had rarely used the King of Inner Demons as his strength had increased. After all, the king of inner demons with the strength of 7 tribulations Emperor Gu could only affect the mind of 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian was now able to bombard 8 tribulations Emperor Gu with his strength alone. The king of inner demons was indeed of little use. However, things were different now. The king of inner demons had already ascended to 8 tribulations Emperor Gu. If it attacked, even 9 tribulations Emperor Gu might be affected by the king of inner demons. The king of inner demons would play a crucial role in Chu Fengmian's future battle with 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. On the other side, Luo Shi had also easily killed the 2 demon Emperor Gu, Wu Ji and Wu Shi. Given her strength, killing several 7 tribulations Emperor Gu was an extremely easy task. I've just arrived in the 9 regions and I've already encountered such a troublesome matter. It seems that the 9 regions are about to change. Chu Fengmian looked at the entire Thunder Fire sect. There was no longer a single disciple. All the disciples before this were impersonated by the Devil Clan. The entire sect was most likely annihilated by the Devil Clan. Chapter 1473. What should we do with him? Luo Shi's eyes flashed as she looked at the Princess of the Sea. Luo Shi had also heard of the Princess of the Sea before. She was a famous prodigy in the sea and had the potential to become one of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. She was even a prodigy who was half a step into the celestial realm. The 4 great factions had always been fighting both openly and covertly. If it was in front of everyone, they would still have some misgivings. But behind the scenes, the 4 major forces fought each other every year, and who knew how many disciples had fallen. Luo Shi wasn't a murderous person, but now that the Princess of the Sea had found out about Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi's powers, she would become a problem sooner or later. Let her go. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Princess of the Sea and furrowed his brows. Chu Fengmian wasn't someone who would willfully slaughter the innocent. The Princess of the Sea had never provoked him, and Chu Fengmian didn't want to kill someone for no reason. Although Chu Fengmian had killed countless people in his life, he had never killed the innocent. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Chu Fengmian looked at the Princess of the Sea and asked. I know. The Princess of the Sea glanced at Chu Fengmian with gratitude in her eyes. Lan Ling will remember today's kindness. I will definitely repay you in the future. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded and looked at Luo Shi. Let's go. Time was of the essence, and Chu Fengmian was running out of time. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi turned into a streak of light and left the Thunder Fire sect, flying towards the north region. The Flame domain could only be considered a lower middle domain among the 9 domains. However, along the way, Chu Fengmian actually saw a lot of life and death realm martial artists. There were even quite a few experts who had stepped onto the life and death steps. As for those at the Divine Force realm, it was unknown how many of them he had met. The strength of the entire Yan domain seemed to have undergone an earth-shattering change. One had to know that in the previous 9 regions, experts who could step onto the life and death steps were extremely rare. Just what had happened in a few short months? The strength of the entire flame realm had increased greatly. Spiritual Qi. The spiritual Qi of the 9 regions is completely different from before. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian noticed that the most obvious change in the 9 realms was Spirit Qi. The Spirit Qi of the 9 realms was extremely thin to begin with. Even the Spirit Qi of the ancient monster continent, a level 7 continent, was much richer than that of the 9 domains. Not to mention the Holy Dragon Mystery Realm and even the Holy Land's Spirit Qi. However, the spiritual Qi in the 9 regions was hundreds or even thousands of times denser than before Chu Fengmian had left. It was almost comparable to the Holy Lands. Under such dense spiritual energy, a martial artist's cultivation was practically a meteoric rise. It was countless times faster. However, the denser the spirit Qi, the easier it was for extremely high-grade spirit herbs to be born, or even saint herbs. What happened in the 9 regions?
When Chu Fengmian first arrived at the 9 regions, his attention was mainly focused on the 2 Devil Emperor Gu, so he didn't pay close attention. Only now did Chu Fengmian realize that the 9 regions in front of him were completely different from what he had imagined. It was like a brand new place. If it wasn't for this familiar landscape, Chu Fengmian would have thought that he had gone to another continent. So, just as Chu Fengmian was puzzled, an escape light flew in front of him. It seemed to be the escape light of a life and death realm martial artist. He didn't look very old, and seemed to be a young man. If it was before, he would definitely be a rare genius. However, Chu Fengmian discovered along the way that this kind of aptitude could only be considered passable, but not a genius. Please wait. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed, and he took a step forward, standing in front of the escape light and blocking it. Who are you? Why are you stopping me? The young man originally wanted to shout, but when he felt the power on Chu Fengmian's body, his face immediately changed, and he said with a face full of shock. I wonder what instructions Senior has for me. What's going on in the 9 regions? Why did the spirit chi become so dense? When did it start? Where did your strength come from? Chu Fengmian asked directly. This, Senior doesn't know? The young man was stunned. I was in seclusion before, and now that I've come out, I discovered that I've changed. Chu Fengmian said calmly. Junior has spoken too much. Seeing that Chu Fengmian wasn't angry, the young man let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly said. It's like this. About half a year ago, the spirit chi of the 9 regions suddenly became denser and denser. Moreover, the 1 sea, 2 skies, and 4 palaces all opened. As for Junior, when I went to the 1,000 Treasure Heaven, I obtained an ancient pill. After swallowing it, I stepped into the life and death realm. The young man didn't dare to be negligent and answered almost all of Chu Fengmian's questions. 1 sea, 2 skies, and 4 palaces all opened? Even the 1,000 Treasure Heaven and Returning Ruins Heaven opened? Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed an indelible disbelief. These few treasured lands had been passed down since the ancient era of the 9 regions. According to the records in the ancient books, almost every time they opened separately. This was the first time in history that all of them opened together. Chu Fengmian didn't know what exactly happened, but it was enough to bring about a huge change in the 9 regions. The young man's luck wasn't much. The treasures in the 1,000 Treasure Heaven were as numerous as the hairs on an ox. Once a lucky martial artist obtained a large number of treasures, it wouldn't be difficult for him to become an expert. Now, who are the strongest forces in the 9 regions? Chu Fengmian asked again. The strongest forces in the 9 regions are the 7 great sections. The young man answered. Hearing this answer, Chu Fengmian finally let out a sigh of relief. At least the 9 regions hadn't changed that much. But, the young man hesitated. But what? Chu Fengmian asked. But the 9 demon city of the 7 great sects has been removed from the list. Now, the 6 paths demon gate has entered the ranks of the 7 great sects and is vaguely at the top of the 7 great sections. The other 6 great sects are joining forces to suppress the 6 paths demon gate. The young man said. 6 paths demon gate? Became one of the 7 great sects? 9 demon city was removed from the list? Hearing this kid, Chu Fengmian and Luo Shi couldn't help but glance at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Previously, Chu Fengmian left the 9 regions because he killed the 6 paths demon gate. However, the Demon Emperor and Sky Demon Supremacy were heavily injured by him. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.